Hey, very good morning to you. It is 7 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophy and Wilfred, good morning from the both of us. We've got a really packed show today.
Donald Trump tells protesters in Iran that help is on the way as speculation ramps about potential US military involvement.
When they start killing thousands of people and now you're telling me about hanging, we'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to work out good.
The violent crackdown continues. 26-year-old Irfan Soltani due to be executed within hours for demonstrating against his government.
Another U-turn from Keir Starmer. Digital ID cards will no longer be mandatory to prove your right to work.
Also today, we're talking reading. The National Year of Reading kicks off today. The broadcaster Alexander Armstrong is going to be here to tell us about his favourite books.
And under the sea in the Antarctic, our team joins scientists trying to work out how collapsing ice causes underwater tsunamis.
Good morning. Welcome to the programme today. Donald Trump has told demonstrators in Iran to stay on the streets, and he's also promised that help is on the way. It's just the latest signal from the US president that he is prepared to use direct military action after telling US citizens last night they should leave the country immediately.
Well, human rights groups say more than 2,500 people have been killed in a brutal crackdown on protesters. This is 26-year-old Irfan Soltani, who's due to be executed in just a matter of hours for participating in the anti-regime demonstrations. It's understood Irfan was arrested in connection with protests in the city of Karaj.
We've heard from Donald Trump. He spoke to US media late last night and said he's going to take very strong action if Iran's regime were to go ahead with the execution of protesters.
If they hang them, you're going to see some things that I don't know what where you come from and what your thought process is, but you'll perhaps be very happy.
What do you mean by that?
We will take very strong action. If they do such a thing, we will take very strong action. We don't want to see what's happening in Iran happen. And, you know, if they want to have protests, that's one thing. When they start killing thousands of people and now you're telling me about hanging, we'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to work out good.
Well, let's listen now to our international correspondent, Alex Rossi. He's got more now on the situation in the ground.
There is only a trickle of images coming out of Iran, but what they show is increasingly brutal. In this video, security forces opened fire on unarmed civilians. It's feared thousands may have been killed. Among the dead is Yassin Mizai. He was 31 years old, a student living in Italy, who'd returned to Iran in the new year. His cousin, who's in Turkey, told us the situation is desperate.
I've not slept for an hour since hearing about Yassin. Many people have died. The state does not want to talk about it, and we do not have access to that information, but at least 5 people have been killed in our neighbourhood in Kermanshah. There are many others, but because there's no internet, we can't get that accurate information.
The regime is now deploying the full machinery of repression. 26-year-old Irfan Soltani was detained 6 days ago. He's now been tried and sentenced to death. He's expected to be executed within hours.
Torture, detentions, killings on the streets, very serious injuries, and then waves of execution. And we see similar trends, but in a way on a very different scale, on a much more expensive scale than what we have seen in the past.
And there are new images from the Karazak mortuary in Tehran. Rows of bodies laid out on the floor. This footage was filmed on January the 9th, but it's only been uploaded now because of an ongoing internet blackout. Activists say these people were killed by the security services. The images are too graphic to broadcast, but many of the victims appear to have gunshot wounds. Understanding where these protests are heading is increasingly difficult. The internet is blocked, and even Elon Musk's Starlink system is being jammed. Iran's leaders do not want the world to see what is happening.
God bless the US.
The United States senses this may be a decisive moment.
And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. And I say, make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over.
Washington is now weighing its options, including the possibility of military strikes. But inside Iran, the regime is not backing down.
We are prepared for any eventuality. If they want to try the military confrontation that they tried once and failed again, we are ready. In fact, since the last war, we are even more ready. If they want to try other options, we're also ready. Whatever option they choose, we are ready.
Despite the violent suppression, Iran's clerics are facing the most serious threat to their rule in decades. The coming hours and days will be critical. Alex Rossi, Sky News.
And look, the estimated numbers of deaths just keep going up, and it should be said it's very difficult to get any information out of Iran, as you can imagine. So these are just estimates. The human rights activist news agency in the US, over 18,000 people have been arrested. The number of people killed has jumped to 2,500. I mean, that's gone up a lot. But again, it's difficult to estimate these numbers with any degree of accuracy.
Mm-hmm. We'll hopefully we'll have more. We are going to have more throughout the programme on that topic with a number of guests. Now, mandatory ID cards for workers are one of the flagship policies for the Prime Minister, but the government has said they're dropping the plan, or at least part of the plan.
Yeah, so the bit that they're dropping is the fact that they're going to be mandatory in order to prove that you can work legally. So the change of policy, it's the 13th U-turn by Labour since they came into power in July 2024. When they were announced last year, ministers said the whole point of compulsory ID for workers was to crack down on illegal working and also stop them, in Keir Starmer's words, slipping into the shadows.
Our political correspondent Alex Rogers is here with us. Very good morning to you. So why don't we just go into the detail, first of all, of the U-turn. These digital ID cards, they still plan to introduce by 2029.
It's more just the mandatory element, as Sophy was saying, that they're dropping. So they still want digital right-to-work checks. I think that's going to make life easier for employers and employees. But just the mandatory element they seem to be rowing back on. They were concerned that there wasn't public backing for the scheme. There was the 3 million people signed that petition. And even Labour MPs as well were a little bit uneasy about pushing this forward when it wasn't in the manifesto.
Can I ask whether you think it's politically damaging? Because look, there is an argument that says it's great that governments listen to feedback, to what people say, that they change and amend policies as they go through. But, we've got Keir Starmer's word saying why these were so necessary. So it does feel a bit damaging as well.
I think it is. And I think the problem is there's been so many. There's been, as you mentioned, there's been 13. So it just looks that even with the massive majority that they won at the last election, if Keir Starmer has a bold policy proposal, he can't seem to get them through. And I think he's really discovering, a bit like Boris Johnson did in 2019, that having a big majority isn't necessarily the blessing that you think it's going to be. And MPs have clearly been emboldened by previous U-turns. So it still looks like whenever he has an offer, can he get it through? And I just want to mention what Wes Streeting was saying at a conference yesterday. He was saying our New Year's resolution for 2026 should be to get it right first time. So that's a bit of a warning there from a potential leadership challenger.
Nice, helpful comments from Wes Streeting there. I'm sure Number 10 are going to be really pleased with those.
It's funny because I think a lot of people really won't. I mean, there's obviously the U-turn part of it that we've all been discussing, but the very fact you're still moving towards digital ID cards might sort of trump the nuances of the policy for many people, particularly that group of people that are kind of against government-issued ID cards, digital or otherwise. Either way, what I think is also really interesting about this from the government perspective is the comms of it all. And what they're saying themselves is, the word mandatory kind of covered the argument too much and people got kind of scared by that. And it's one of those examples where rather than saying this is going to be terrible for illegal workers, could they have instead said, this is why it's going to be good for you, for all people. This is going to make your life simpler. It's going to stop you getting hacked. It's going to make it much easier to age verify kids doing things or not doing things. And by the way, you basically have a digital ID already, but it's controlled by a tech company in the United States with no oversight. And it's just quite interesting that how certainly there's errors on this policy because they're having to change it, but I wonder how much of it's just they didn't sell it very well, they didn't communicate it very well in the first place.
I think that's an issue that they've been having. Again, when you have so many MPs, it's quite difficult to reach out to so many and persuade them. They could have made the case, as you say. Yeah.
We wanted to touch as well, Alex, whilst we've got you, this question over the Chinese embassy in London, because this has been something that's been rumoured for ages, and the date at which it must be decided to be approved or not has been pushed back multiple times. The date's now looming. It's next week?
It's supposed to be either due on or before the 20th of January. And I think we're talking about this again because the Prime Minister's due to visit China at some point this month. So he's going to want to talk that up. But it's really controversial. So this embassy would be on the former Royal Mail site next to the Tower of London, so right by the City of London and all those financial cables, serving all the data. So it's unpopular with Labour MPs and Tory MPs as well.
Yeah, the fact that he's going to China at some point this month, I think perhaps it's fair to say gives us a bit of information about whether or not it's likely to be approved, right? I mean, it'd be very hard for him to go over to China having just rejected their embassy bid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he'll want to talk this up, but I think, like Prime Ministers before him, he's still stuck in that conundrum of how do we deal with China? It's clear we need them for our economic growth, but there's just always national security concerns looming. So he's got to pick a side, I guess.
I think that's certainly the assumption it'll be approved, given he's about to go, as you say. The other one, call me skeptic, call me a conspiracy theorist on this. The date's for next week, but he's off to Davos over the weekend. There'll be lots of business leaders there, including people from China. So I have a feeling the decision might come out later this week, before Davos, a little before the January the 20th deadline. But I would imagine after PMQs.
Yeah, PMQs today around lunchtime. So we're expecting it any time from this afternoon.
Yeah, I reckon like late Wednesday, early Thursday, maybe. We might see this decision slip out. Alex, great stuff, as always.
Thanks
so
Alex.
much.
Now, we just wanted to let you know about some news that's coming out of Thailand, because a train crash there has killed at least 22 people.
What we understand happened is that a construction crane fell on top of the moving train, causing it to derail. The Transport Minister said there were 195 people on board altogether. Dozens more have been injured.
We don't have any word yet on who exactly the victims were. More information, of course, coming out on that. You can see those images now of the clean-up operation. The train derailed there in Thailand.
To the US now, and former President Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton have refused to testify to a congressional investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
So they did release a letter on social media. They've criticised the House Oversight Probe as legally invalid. They added that the chair of the committee, a man called James Comer, was on the cusp of a process designed to result in their imprisonment. This is what James Comer had to say in response.
No one's accusing Bill Clinton of any wrongdoing. We just have questions, and that's why the Democrats voted along with Republicans to subpoena Bill Clinton. Not a single Democrat showed up today. We will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress.
There is a bit more detail I think it is fair to share and important to emphasise as well, because the key is that other people have been asked to testify with written statements. So I think this is why the Clintons feel they've been treated in a different way, because they've been asked to testify in public. Yeah,
and I think others have been subpoenaed who haven't shown up either. Obviously, this understandably gets a lot of coverage as a former president. The next step is they have to decide, the committee, if they want to hold him in contempt of Congress. If the committee votes to do so, then it goes further to the whole of the House. So there's a few steps left, and we'll see where it kind of settles down. The other thing we should say, even the chair of the committee, the Republican, says they're not actually accused of any wrongdoing.
Yeah, this is that no wrongdoing, but of course we know how politically sensitive, to say the least, any association with Jeffrey Epstein is.
Mm-hmm. Now, in the last few minutes, we've had the results of the government's latest auction of offshore wind power, which it says will cut costs and carbon emissions.
So did they get a good deal? And will it at all impact your energy bills? Well, business correspondent Paul Calso is here. He's scrolling through all the details. He's got his phone out. He's trying to work out what's going on.
Got my glasses on, you know it's serious.
Got the glasses on, exactly.
It'll definitely affect your energy bill. Did they get a good deal? I predict they will say they did. The bones of this auction, this is an auction power generators who want to build wind farms are invited to into an auction to agree contracts that have been extended this time from 15 to 20 years, where they will get a guaranteed fixed price for that power under a system that's supposed to also put a cap on how much we will pay for that power. And the bones of it are that the government has secured 8.2 gigawatts of new wind capacity, commitments to build that at a strike price, that's the price the auction comes up with, of £91.20 per megawatt hour. Now, that is 11% more than was agreed in the auction last year for capacity, but it is the largest, I think, that's what I was trying to check, I think it's the largest ever amount of capacity in one of these auctions. They're annual, and they've become increasingly important. This one has been seen very important towards the government's target, which is, excuse me, to get to a clean power grid by 2030, which means we need at least 43 gigawatts of offshore wind power. They're about halfway to that, and this puts a big dent in that. The fact they've attracted so much capacity, so many companies wanting to build new wind power at a price that it is only 11% higher, given the rising costs of building offshore wind that we know about, inflation, particularly the cost of borrowing money to fund these. They will say it is a good deal, but it will have an impact on your bills. Let's talk about it.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I think it's fair to say only, well, I guess it's up 11%, maybe it could have been worse, but that's in light of oil and gas prices coming down. So I think if people want to say that the alternative is only wind or only renewables, maybe you'd say 11% increase isn't that high, but there are other sources of power. Oil prices are down quite significantly.
There are other sources of power, and of course, gas prices set the price of electricity in the UK market almost all of the time, and we all recall that big gas spike after the Ukraine war. The market is complicated, but the effect of renewables, one of the effects, the more renewables on the system, the less gas sets the price of power. So more renewables have a depressing effect on the wholesale price. And there's a couple of bits of analysis before this auction that said if a price of £94 or lower will be net zero, to coin a phrase, for bill payers, because while we might be paying more to top up these contracts, to satisfy these contracts to the providers, the effect by removing gas from setting the price will depress wholesale prices.
So just to be clear, your energy bills, is it likely to go up or down as a result of this then?
The argument is going to be, I mean, we'll need to wait and see. Well, it slightly depends on what happens to the price of gas in the long term. The argument will be, well, this will not add cost to bills. Where there may be added cost is the fact there's a huge amount of new wind power going on. Some of it's off Scotland, all of it's in the North Sea. At the moment, we don't have the grid connections to get it all to where the power is needed, largely down here in the south of England. And sometimes these developers are paid not to produce. That's a waste of money that people loathe. So there are costs that are added. The cost of this energy transition, bluntly, is at some point in the future, renewables, you don't have to pay for fuel for them. They will reduce costs. But right now, we are paying to build them. So the hump in prices right now, we are the people paying for this transition.
Yeah, we're definitely paying in the short term. The question is whether we're paying in the long term as well, which we don't.
And there's also a question about whether we are paying more than we would be if it was gas only.
Exactly. But I think the other key thing that actually comes out of all these auctions, which is just worth reminding everyone, in a way that a gas or oil or any other kind of power producer doesn't get, wind producers have a guaranteed amount. So if we do get to a world where commodity prices collapse, the price we pay for wind energy has a set minimum.
These are fixed prices for 20 years.
Which doesn't apply to other sources. It also applies
to nuclear power stations, who also receive fixed prices under contracts for difference at a much higher rate, about £120 for Hinkley Point. Offshore wind sits about halfway up this renewables. Solar's about £50, £60 a gigawatt hour. I think we've proved there's a debate, and hopefully later on I'll be talking to Ed Miliband and we can share some of that with you.
Great stuff. Thanks so much, Paul.
Bit of sports now. The former Manchester United captain Michael Carrick is back. He's going to be the club's head coach for the rest of the season.
He, of course, was briefly... I'm going to say, of course, I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying briefly manager of Middlesbrough.
He was.
Good, double check.
He was Middlesbrough.
Had a decent little run at Middlesbrough, then got let go and...
not that decent.
Not that decent. And then, obviously, taking over temporarily, they say. So, end of the season, bringing in a few other familiar faces into his management team. Johnny Evans, I saw. Steve Holland, Gareth Southgate's former assistant when he was England manager, and they'll hope he steadies the ship for the rest of the season, and then I guess they're looking at a big appointment in summer.
Yeah, exactly. That his first game at a Premier League derby against Man City on Saturday.
Oh.
So yeah, like a nice, easy easing back in. I'm sure that won't be a big test at all.
Very tasty.
Really is. Right, the government has been announcing some new plans today about Northern Rail, a new Northern Rail network. This is all about linking up major cities in the north. And look, it could really make a difference to people's lives. I think it's fair to say it's an investment in train services, including this new rail line built between Liverpool and Manchester. Now, you might remember a previous plan to extend HS2 between the cities, between Birmingham and Manchester, was scrapped by Rishi Sunak's Conservative government in 2023. Let's get a bit more detail with this, shall we? We can talk now to the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander. Finally, a new Northern Rail link, linking up these major cities. But work on the new Liverpool to Manchester line is only going to begin in the 2030s, so people are going to have to wait a bit for it.
Good morning, Sophie. Thanks ever so much for having me on. I think this is a really exciting moment for the north of England because after all the dither and delay of the last government when it comes to Northern Powerhouse Rail, we're setting out a programme of investment that is going to span over the next couple of decades to really improve the quality of rail services that connect the great cities of the north. At the moment, if you try and get from one side of the country to the other, from Liverpool through to Manchester, Bradford, Sheffield, Leeds, on to Newcastle, you've got creaking Victorian infrastructure, you've got poor reliability, you've got slow services. And, you know, I think that people in the north of England deserve the same quality of public transport infrastructure as people in London and the South East. So that's why we're introducing a turn up and go service. That is what our plan is all about today. It means that you don't have to be faffing around looking for timetables. You can just turn up at your station and know that a train is going to arrive within a reasonable time frame. It does include that new line between Manchester and Liverpool going via Manchester Airport and Warrington, which is really important, and also increasing the frequency, reliability and capacity of services going into Leeds from York, Bradford and Sheffield.
I don't think anyone would disagree.
Really exciting moment.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. It's just, you know how it is when you're not in the same room. You kind of want to have a bit of a conversation if you can. I don't think anyone would disagree with your central point there that people in the whole of the UK deserve the same quality of public transport. That's absolutely emphatic. But the question was about how long away this is going to be. You talk about the Liverpool to Manchester line. That's only going to begin in the 2030s. It's also going to cost 45 billion, but only 1.1 billion is coming from this Parliament's Department for Transport budget. So, the rhetoric sounds great, but is this actually going to happen, and how soon?
Yeah, the £1.1 billion that we have got allocated to spend over the next 4 years is a really significant uplift on what the previous government was spending. They were talking about this.
I'm not interested. I'm not really interested in what. I feel like that's ancient history. I'm not interested in what the Conservatives did before. I'm interested in what people want to know is when is this going to happen, and can we trust this government to deliver on its promises? £45 billion project, £1.1 billion allocated this Parliament, and work is only going to begin in the 2030s.
Let me explain how rail infrastructure improvements work, Sophie. It might be helpful for your listeners. If you think back about the improvements that we've seen in London with Crossrail, which is now running as the Elizabeth line, that was people were talking about that for decades. It was in 2007 that the then Labour Prime Minister Gordon Brown gave the go-ahead. It took 15 years to do the tunnelling and build that new line and commission the railway and get it into service for people. Doing railway infrastructure properly, unfortunately, takes time. Of course, I'd like us to go faster, but I don't want us to be wasting taxpayers' money. We need to learn the lessons from big infrastructure projects like HS2, where insufficient planning happened up front. It meant that contracts were being let to construction companies when there wasn't clarity on what the contractors were being asked to deliver. That is the way you waste public money. And that is not a mistake that this government is going to make again. That's why we've got a well thought out, sequenced and prioritised programme for investment. It's why we're saying we need to improve those services going into Leeds, which is fast becoming the financial square mile of the north of England. It's why we're saying we need to unlock regeneration opportunities in Manchester. Look, Manchester Piccadilly could become the
I am going to
King's
jump
Cross
in, and I hate doing this,
the
I'm
north
so
of
sorry.
England. And
but there is obviously, as you understand, there are a couple of things that I'm keen to get through in the interview as well. And, as you say, the points you make, I think, about the need for this investment, I think, will be appreciated by many of our viewers. Can I ask you about digital ID cards? Because the government's abandoned plans for mandatory digital IDs for workers. Now, we were told that this is all about cracking down on illegal working. Keir Starmer said, we need to know who's in our country and stop them slipping into the shadow economy. Why did you change your mind?
So we're still committed to having mandatory digital right-to-work checks in this country. At the moment, we've got a complete mishmash of a paper system where no digital records are kept, and that makes it very hard to properly target your enforcement operations.
You are abandoning plans, just to be clear. You are abandoning plans for mandatory digital IDs for workers. That's the question. Why are you doing that?
So there's a difference, Sophie. We are committed to having mandatory digital right-to-work checks. Now, that might be that someone has the digital ID that the government makes freely available. It's on their phone. They can use that to demonstrate their right to work in the country. Equally, it might be the check of a biometric chip in a passport, which is digitally done. It is really important that we bring ourselves in line with other countries in Europe, places like France and Germany, that have digital records of people's right to work. That then enables enforcement operations to happen where you've got businesses that are employing people who don't have the right to work.
I mean, look, I appreciate what you're saying there about the importance of bringing it into line, but the fundamental question still stands. You told us that you were going to introduce mandatory digital ID cards for all workers, and Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, said this is important because it stops people slipping into the shadow economy, and you change your mind. Look, I know, U-turning can be. If I could just finish the question, that'd be really appreciated. People always say that some U-turns are a good thing because it shows the government is listening, that you're tweaking policy. But the sheer number of U-turns carried out by this government, 13, is there a risk that if you're positioning yourself as a reforming government, as soon as you get a bit of pushback, you crumble?
No, not at all. And I don't accept that this government has done 13 U-turns. Some of those things that people are claiming weren't even in our manifesto. It's right, of course, when new information...
So U-turn only counts if it's in the manifesto, so we shouldn't trust what the Prime Minister tells us then. I can read some of to you if you want. So we've got a digital ID cards, welfare spending, business rates of pubs, farmers' inheritance tax, winter fuel payments, two-child benefit cap, waspy women conversation, national grooming gangs inquiry. I mean, I could go on.
I'm sorry, Sophie, you've given the example in there, and, I can come back on those. It's quite hard when we're not in the studio together to hear every single word you were saying there. But look, take the example of our decision to lift the two-child cap in universal credit. We were always clear as soon as we came into government that we were setting up a child poverty task force, and we'd look at every lever available to us to tackle the problem of child poverty in this country. I don't believe it is a U-turn. No, I don't believe it is a U-turn. And look, you could take other examples that I've seen on that list as well. Look, I expect that there are lots of older women across the country who would say, actually, they would have liked to have seen us do more for women of state pension age. I remember having conversations with my constituents that weren't my constituents before the election because I was simply a candidate, saying, look, I'm not sure that the financial realities that this government is going to inherit is going to enable us to take action on that. So I've been totally honest with people standing before the election and subsequently after the election as well. You talk about trust in politics. I think it's really important that when people think about how this government is delivering on the promises that it made. We said that we would bring stability back to the economy. We've seen interest rates cut 6 times. We've got inflation falling. That will make a real impact in terms of, people who have got mortgages and with the daily cost of living. We've got wages going up faster than prices now. We've also had record investment in the NHS. We promised 2 million more appointments. We've delivered over 5 million more appointments in order to get those NHS waiting lists.
I just have one other question. I was hoping to squeeze in.
Change is going to take time. Change is going to take time, but we are making progress.
The final question I just wanted to squeeze in, because I know we're running out of time, is the plans for a Chinese super embassy, because lots of MPs are worried about this because of the location. It's sitting on top of those cables, carrying data to the City of London, that the plans are very extensive as well. Do you understand why people are worried?
So the planning application for a new Chinese embassy is obviously a decision that is currently on the desk of the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government. This is a quasi-judicial decision and it is for him to decide on that. I know that there has been a lot of work done to make sure that all the security concerns that have been raised have been addressed, but it is for the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government to determine that planning application. I don't have any information on the balance of considerations that he has before him at the moment, but I know he will go through that process very thoroughly, and it's, as I say, a quasi-judicial decision that he will be taking.
OK, Heidi Alexander, thank you very much indeed, Heidi Alexander, speaking to us there.
Coming up after the break, we have a really eye-opening report for you. Amazing, amazing pictures from our science editor, Tom Clark, who just got back from Antarctica. He's here to tell us all about it and show us some of the pictures he's captured. You don't want to miss it. It's next.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Big Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Welcome back. We're taking you now to Antarctica because scientists there have been investigating how huge underwater waves triggered by collapsing ice could be dragging warmer water up from the depths and therefore speeding up the melting of glaciers.
So to work out what's going on, they're sending out these underwater drones beneath the ice. And our science editor, Tom Clark, went along to the edge of a collapsing glacier to see what's going on.
This submarine drone is on a pioneering mission to catch an underwater wave. When chunks of ice break off glaciers, they make quite a splash. The scientists we've come to meet suspect they may be doing a lot more, creating underwater tsunamis.
These big underwater waves with amplitudes of tens to possibly hundreds of meters, what that can do is it can mix warm, deep water with water closer to the surface. And we have to understand that in order to make those better predictions about sea ice melt.
A small fleet of these gliders is being deployed to patrol the bay and analyse passing waves for the first time. So we're picking our way right now through this crumbly ice. We have to slow right down. And all this is the residue of the massive blocks of ice that carve off the front of the glacier. And if you listen, you can hear it sometimes cracking, popping. It's the sound of air bubbles escaping after centuries trapped in the glacier's ice. And it's different to the air life on Earth breathes now, which, largely thanks to the Industrial Revolution and everything since, contains nearly twice as much carbon dioxide as it did back then. Last year was the warmest on record in Antarctica, and there's evidence faster melting is disrupting this globally connected system, the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, a revolving flow connecting all the world's oceans, acting like a planetary scale refrigerator.
It's absorbing a lot of human-made heat, and it's taking that heat down into the bottom of this deep ocean. And what scientists really want to know is, are we at risk of it coming back into our atmosphere? And that will affect us all.
Down here, those impacts won't be subtle. 1,000 miles southeast of where we are, a team of scientists have just landed on one of Antarctica's most infamous glaciers. Their mission, to use hot water to drill into the kilometre-thick ice of the Thwaites Glacier to learn how soon it may collapse.
Thwaites has been identified as kind of the ice ocean system that's most likely to affect sea level rise over the next 100 years. If you destabilize Thwaites, it might lead to a destabilization of the rest of the ice sheet and ice shelves around it.
It's earned the nickname the Doomsday Glacier because it holds back, like a cork in a frozen bottle, the far larger West Antarctic ice sheet. Losing both could raise global sea levels by 3 to 5 metres. The Doomsday title has raised the hackles of climate skeptics who argue it's alarmist. The truth is, the scientists don't like it either. How fast collapse will happen is still uncertain. But they're confident no humans have witnessed changes this fast. Now there's 8 billion of us. Despite being as far as you can get from civilization, this is the one place on Earth that matters to us all. Tom Clark, Sky News, Antarctica.
Amazing, amazing stuff. Tom's here with us, and we've got more of your package to watch in the different hours. The full package is already available online. Can't wait to see it all. I guess the question that one jumps to straight away is, what can be done? And is there hope versus, the headline point of trying to slow the Earth's temperature warming?
I think there's definitely hope because we have started to slow down the amount of carbon emissions we're producing. It's still rising, but the rate of increase has significantly slowed. There's signs that even the biggest emitter in the world, China, has started to peak its carbon emissions. They may have peaked already and they're starting to fall. That's good. What these scientists are trying to figure out is how far has that pushed something which has been in a reasonable state of equilibrium for tens of thousands of years, with levels of carbon dioxide at pre-industrial levels? Have we pushed it past one of these tipping points, as they call it? Scientists don't really like that term because we don't really know what one looks like on these sorts of timescales, and that's what we were hearing in that report. And people often say this who and I've seen this a lot in social media response to the piece, the climate's changed before. Antarctica's been warmer. The fossils on Antarctica tell us there used to be palm trees down there, millions of years.
Used to be palm trees in Antarctica?
Yeah. There were times in the Earth's past when Antarctica it wasn't quite tropical, but it was warm enough to sustain forests. Yeah.
Amazing. No idea.
And that's a fair point. But those processes, those changes happened due to very big planetary cycles, solar cycles, and changes in CO2. And they took thousands and thousands of years to unfold and then to return to a state again. We've seen the equivalent sort of sudden change in warming in less than 2 centuries.
Can I, because I haven't been able to take my eyes off those pictures, extraordinary. What was it like? I mean, did you see wildlife? Did you see people?
I've always wanted to go to Antarctica. It was such a complete privilege to get there. And it meets all your expectations. It's spectacular, but also kind of, in a weird way, quite savage. I mean, it is a complete barren, frozen, and very dry. That's a weird thing. It feels colder here because it's so dry there. But the oceans around Antarctica, or at least West Antarctica, actually, where we were on the Rotherham Research Station, which British Antarctic Survey run, it's teeming with life. There are we saw humpback whales everywhere, every single day. Seals everywhere, penguins waddling around.
This makes me feel more optimistic as well.
And then deep in the ocean, lots of life. I mean, that's one of these other questions. As Antarctica warms, biological productivity goes up. We know from historical fossil records and climate measurements from before, from various sources, that it starts to absorb more carbon dioxide. How much of a role will this play in kind of buffering climate change? And that's why what the researchers are doing down there is really important right now. This is the thing, really, of all the other things apart from carbon dioxide emissions, it's Antarctica that's going to dictate how quickly we warm and whether there's any kind of buffering in there or whether it goes over a tipping point and things get a bit unraveled quite quickly.
Overall, still pretty chilly down there?
Interesting, it's the height of their summer, remember, it's in the southern hemisphere.
So how cold was it?
It was warmer there than it was in London.
Was it?
When I was there, yeah.
God,
it was about 1 degree.
How worrying.
It was about 0, -1, and my wife messaged me while I was down there saying it's -5 in London. I was like, oh.
And you were probably better prepared clothing-wise.
I had some. They made sure I had some pretty good kit. I was well looked after. Yeah.
We'll be back with more as well of that extraordinary stuff later on in the programme.
Now, there are warnings about the treatment of ADHD, and some people saying it's become a wild west due to the increasing number of private providers and unregulated assessments.
Demand for ADHD assessments has soared as awareness of the condition has increased, leaving NHS services overstretched. Let's talk about it now with the founder of the UK Adult ADHD Network, Marios Adamu. Thanks so much for joining us, Professor Adamu. Just set it up for us, first of all. What is this condition? And gauge for us that rise that we just mentioned. How much has it risen, the amount of diagnoses of ADHD over the last decade or so?
The condition is a clinical condition. It is defined by symptoms of hyperactivity, impulsivity, and inattentiveness. And the demand in our NHS service has increased 6-fold since 2020. So the demand is nothing we have imagined or predicted.
It's a really, really sensitive area, this. And I know there'll be parents watching this and kids watching this and who feel very, very strongly about the provision for people with ADHD and the difficulties that they might face. But do you think that there is an overdiagnosis and some people who are getting that additional support and funding for conditions like ADHD shouldn't be?
I can speak from the clinical practice that I see, and for a good proportion of cases that we see, we wouldn't have diagnosed in the NHS for a number of reasons. So from what I can see, there is evidence of a diagnosis, and there may be several reasons behind that. This is why I understand the government has set up a commission to look into this issue. It is a real issue, and it needs some understanding. So patients and parents are more assured about the future.
What do you prescribe to treat it when people do have it?
The treatment is in the main stimulant medication. You may have heard some medication called Ritalin. They are controlled drugs. They're not without their risks, and especially in the long term, and especially for children. So, however, these medicines are quite helpful and can change people's lives when they have ADHD. So they can and they should be prescribed for the appropriate indication.
And can we just kind of get back to basics and talk about, what is ADHD and how do you go about telling if somebody has it?
As I said before, it's a clinical condition. We call it a neurodevelopmental disorder. So it is a condition that people grow into. And for example, for an adult that we would see, they would have difficulties at work because they cannot concentrate. They could have difficulty in their life because they're impulsive and make decisions rashly. And they may be hyperactive. So, for example, they couldn't sit through a film. Obviously, if one has these difficulties that I described, it doesn't mean they have ADHD. I've just given some examples of a person who may have ADHD and have these difficulties. There are people who do awareness courses, and out of them they think, oh, I have this condition. There is a risk always when describing these conditions, people identifying with the presentation themselves. This is not the case. ADHD is a clinical condition that requires prescribed treatment. It is not an identity, and it is not about some features people have in their normal, in their life.
Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
It's very, very interesting to get the perspective there. This is such a live political issue, very controversial for the government, who, of course, are looking into those reforms for special educational needs.
Let's have a look at the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
The next few days look changeable with impactful weather possible in the south tomorrow. It's frosty out there for many with some freezing fog and icy stretches. Expect a largely dry and sunny morning once early fog lifts, but England's southernmost counties will become grey and damp. Cloud, rain and strong winds will also move into the west of Ireland and the Outer Hebrides, whereas earlier showers over mainland Scotland will mostly fade. It'll be colder than recent days, especially for England and Wales. The afternoon will see wind and rain spreading across the west, while more of the south will turn dull and damp.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Next, we will be speaking to a Christian content creator about the rise of religious popularity among younger people. Bible sales jumped last year. We'll explore why.
People that pod together, they have a little hive brain going on. They've not had a good week.
I've had a good week. There's a teaser there, a teaser.
Oof. OK, nothing to see here. Drama over. Full stop. Anyway, we'll get to that. She will be mortified.
Because she's the first female chancellor.
I popped upstairs, made myself a cheese sandwich, and now I'm with you.
Annalise has come dressed in the magenta of electoral dysfunction. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. President, what will you say next to Benjamin Netanyahu? In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent. I've interviewed some of America's most recognisable politicians. Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from the UK?
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting.
Mr Walker, you're anti-abortion, but two women say that you paid for their abortions. Are you a hypocrite, sir?
Connor, what did you say to the president? What did you say?
We had a great meeting. He was a great man.
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents based in Washington, D.C.
David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that?
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here.
Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism?
I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
The anger too, and the division.
Where are you from? From Sky News, UK.
Yeah.
Back up.
Mr. Navarro,
I'm allowed to ask questions, aren't I?
I'm Mark Stone, and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding, Mr. Musk. Has your ego and ignorance, sir, cost Ukrainian lives?
David Cameron needs to worry about his own country, and frankly, he can kiss my ass.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody?
Free wherever you get your news.
What words do you have for Harry Dunn's family today?
Have a nice day.
Do you fear a fourth indictment?
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to. Being a Sky News presenter. Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think is really unusual? Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started. We're talking about religion next, and specifically Christianity, because there is some fascinating new data that's come out. This is a recent YouGov study, and it's revealed that Gen Z, in other words, young people, believe in a God more than any other generation. So their levels of faith even surpass people who are age over 65. That surprised me, I have to say.
Yeah, and the other statistic as well that struck us was that Bible sales in the UK have increased by 134% since 2019. It's the highest level since records began.
We can talk now to the Christian content creator, Zach Ubi. It's great to have you on, Zach.
Hello.
What's a Christian content creator?
I don't know. I'm just a Jesus guy. I think I just try to spread love. If you read the Bible, Jesus is love. So I just try to show that in my content as much as possible. Show people you're not perfect. Jesus knows this. I'll try and be the best that you can and see where you end up.
Yeah.
To the statistic that Sophy mentioned too, that Gen Z believes in a God or a higher power more than any other generation, would you say it was fair to you until recently to think that essentially religion and maybe Christianity specifically tended to be more appealing to older people, that this was a declining popularity thing as generations pass? And why has that changed all of a sudden?
I think people look for relatability. And I think when you look at the older generation, sometimes as a younger person, it can be difficult to look at that and to think, oh, I want to be like that and stuff like that. But you go online now and you see young people talking about God, you see different perspectives on God. And I think that is what really encourages people. Do you know what? It's not just this generation. I can actually be involved and learn more about this too.
It's interesting, isn't it? Do you think that, I wonder your take on whether, I guess, the face of Christianity and religion more generally has changed a bit. Like, it feels to me like churches are often very inclusive, quite dynamic now in a way that, it's not, you kind of think of the kind of Sunday school of the past where everyone had to sit there in silence. It's not necessarily like that now. I
think that's an example of Jesus' love, really. I think none of us are perfect. We're all dealing with our own battles day by day, and that is life. If you read the Bible, I think you understand that Jesus accepts you as you are. And I think that is what a lot of people are finding in this volatile world that we're kind of living in. People are seeking, and they're seeking critically and ending up at Jesus. So
it's interesting you mentioned the volatile world. Do you think that's part of it as well, that people just want that kind of something more rooting, more secure?
I think so. And I think it's hard to rely on people because you're shown examples every single day of how amazing people can be, but also how not amazing they can be as well. So, and I think that is just human nature. But I think when you read about Jesus, you realise there's more than that.
It's a similar question, but do you think more people turn to God, to religion of whatever form, when times are dark? Or is that not a fair kind of summation of?
I think that's just human nature. I think when life is tough, you do turn to something bigger than what you're currently going through. So I think it is human nature, and I think the Bible is written in a way to demonstrate that we do lean on him in the dark times, but I think it's just good to appreciate him when times are good as well.
And do you think, this is a thought that I guess revealing what goes through my own mind with it,
Oh,
but
I don't know where we're going now.
no, but do you think people have, and I guess it's each to their own and maybe it changes over time, people have a hope when they turn to religion or to God at a dark time more than they perhaps have a faith? i.e. is the conviction in it also a bit lower than perhaps the purists of generations past might be, and does that matter?
I think you have to have a hope, but you also have to have faith in what you're reading and faith that your God is going to come through. And I think that is why it's so important to put your trust and your hope into him, because as he delivers in your life, through the good moments and through the bad moments, I think Jesus' promise is to protect you in the storm, not to remove the storm from your life. And I think that's just the way to look at it.
It's been really interesting to talk. Genuinely very, very fascinating trend there with the kind of younger generation and religion as opposed to even the over 65s. Thanks for coming in. Thank you.
The chairs spin more easily than you realise.
Yeah, they're kind of like, they're very spinny.
We nearly lost you there. It came back. Zach, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, Zach Gooby.
I don't know how much you pay for a cup of coffee. But I'd hope it's not £10 because that is how much Nostos Coffee in Westminster is charging for a flat white, £10 flat white.
So this is just around the corner. This is why we noticed this. And their £10 flat white includes, God, I didn't know this, a freeze distilled milk. What on earth does that mean?
It's apparently, and I'm just reading from the auto cue here, it's to make it extra creamy. There you go.
I mean, I like a black coffee anyway, so milk is disgusting. So I definitely wouldn't go for this. And the drink costs 5 times more than a standard flat white at £1.81 from Wetherspoons.
That's a bit better. That's a bargain.
That is a bargain.
£1.81 is very good.
So would you go for this? You have your cappuccino?
I am a cappuccino girl.
So this sounds all right? Milky coffee?
Yeah, but I'm not paying £10 for it.
Not £10, but would you try it if we could get it, if I bought it for you?
If you buy me the £10 coffee, I'll try it and report back.
I wouldn't.
Go on, Wilf.
Because I don't like milk.
Why don't you dash out on the advert, see if you can do it for the next hour.
Well, I don't know quite how close it is. That's one way of trying to get me upset. Simple black coffee for me, please. Right, we're out of time. We'll be right back. Plenty of caffeine and ready to go.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today.
Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?
Good morning, it is 8 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Rich and Frost.
With Sophy and Wilfred, very good morning from me as well. Lots ahead.
Donald Trump slams a new, that's not right, is it? Donald Trump slams a new tariff on any country doing business with Iran, but more convictionally, he also is saying people should stay on the streets and help is on its way. These are wrong.
When they start killing thousands of people and now you're telling me about hanging, we'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to work out good.
26-year-old Irfan Soltani is due to be executed within hours for demonstrating against his government.
Another U-turn from Keir Starmer. Digital ID cards will no longer be mandatory to prove your right to work.
Coming up today, we're going to be talking to Alexander Armstrong, given that today is the start of the National Year of Reading.
And under the sea in the Antarctic, our team joins scientists trying to work out how collapsing ice causes underwater tsunamis.
A very good morning and welcome to the programme. We're going to kick off with Iran again today, and the latest headline being the rhetoric from President Trump overnight, making it clear that he says help is on the way. The implications that means for things going forward, not least the message that reaches the protesters.
Human rights groups say 2,500 people, 2,500 people have now been killed. It's very difficult, of course, to get any clear estimation of that coming through as well. 26-year-old Irfan Soltani due to be executed in just a matter of hours for participating in the anti-regime demonstrations. It is understood Irfan was arrested in connection with protests in the city of Karaj.
Speaking to the US media late last night, CBS, President Trump said he is likely to take very strong action.
If they hang him, you're going to see some things that I don't know what where you come from and what your thought process is, but you'll perhaps be very happy.
What do you mean by that?
We will take very strong action. If they do such a thing, we will take very strong action. We don't want to see what's happening in Iran happen. And, you know, if they want to have protests, that's one thing. When they start killing thousands of people and now you're telling me about hanging, we'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to work out good.
Donald Trump there speaking overnight. Our international correspondent Alex Rossi has more now on the situation on the ground.
There is only a trickle of images coming out of Iran, but what they show is increasingly brutal. In this video, security forces opened fire on unarmed civilians. It's feared thousands may have been killed. Among the dead is Yassin Mizai. He was 31 years old, a student living in Italy, who'd returned to Iran in the new year. His cousin, who's in Turkey, told us the situation is desperate.
I've not slept for an hour since hearing about Yassin. Many people have died. The state does not want to talk about it, and we do not have access to that information, but at least 5 people have been killed in our neighbourhood in Kermanshah. There are many others, but because there's no internet, we can't get that accurate information.
The regime is now deploying the full machinery of repression. 26-year-old Irfan Soltani was detained 6 days ago. He's now been tried and sentenced to death. He's expected to be executed within hours.
Torture, detentions, killings on the streets, very serious injuries, and then waves of execution. And we see similar trends, but in a way on a very different scale, on a much more expensive scale than what we have seen in the past.
And there are new images from the Karazak mortuary in Tehran. Rows of bodies laid out on the floor. This footage was filmed on January the 9th, but it's only been uploaded now because of an ongoing internet blackout. Activists say these people were killed by the security services. The images are too graphic to broadcast. but many of the victims appear to have gunshot wounds. Understanding where these protests are heading is increasingly difficult. The internet is blocked, and even Elon Musk's Starlink system is being jammed. Iran's leaders do not want the world to see what is happening.
God bless the U.S.
The United States senses this may be a decisive moment.
And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. And I say, make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over.
Washington is now weighing its options, including the possibility of military strikes. But inside Iran, the regime is not backing down.
We are prepared for any eventuality. If they want to try the military confrontation that they tried once and failed again, we are ready. In fact, since the last war, we are even more ready. If they want to try other options, we're also ready. Whatever option they choose, we are ready.
Despite the violent suppression, Iran's clerics are facing the most serious threat to their rule in decades. The coming hours and days will be critical. Alex Rossi, Sky News.
Of course, remains to be seen what action might follow from the US president, but I think it's really clear now, over multiple days, most clear yet last night, that he's promised it, and I'm sure those messages will be reaching the protesters, protesting for many, many reasons, but one of them will be the hope and thought that there's help to come from overseas.
Yeah, and Donald Trump as well, pinning his threat or promise, whichever way you look at it, of military intervention on what happens with these planned executions. And the head of Iran's judiciary has signalled today that there will be fast trials and executions for some of those protesters. He made these comments on state TV saying if we want to do a job, we should do it now. And of course, the person that we've been commenting on today, the 26-year-old Irfan Soltani, due to be executed today. It'll be interesting to see if Donald Trump reacts if that happens.
More to come, of course, on Iran throughout the programme. Now, to news here, and digital ID cards, which were going to be mandatory for proving your right to work, and was one of the flagship policies announced in the last few months by the Prime Minister, is now going to be dropped, the mandatory part, anyway.
Yeah, so they were announced last year, and Minister said that compulsory ID cards were a key tool to try and stop illegal workers, stopping them slipping into the shadows of the economy, I think was the kind of slightly flowery way that Keir Starmer described it. But the government have faced some criticism for the 13th U-turn since they came into power in July 2024. I asked Heidi Alexander about it this morning.
I don't accept that this government has done 13 U-turns. You know, some of those things that people are claiming weren't even in our manifesto. It's right, of course, when new information...
So a U-turn only counts if it's in the manifesto, so we shouldn't trust what the Prime Minister tells us then. I can read some of it to you if you want. So we've got digital ID cards, welfare spending, business rates of pubs, farmers' inheritance tax, winter fuel payments, two-child benefit cap, WASPy women compensation, national grooming gangs inquiry. I mean, I could go on.
I'm sorry, Sophie, you've given the example in there, and, you know, I can come back on those. It's quite hard when we're not in the studio together to hear every single word you were saying there. But look, take the example of our decision to lift the two-child cap in universal credit. We were always clear as soon as we came into government that we were setting up a child poverty task force, and we'd look at every lever available to us to tackle the problem of child poverty in this country. I don't believe it is a U-turn. No, I don't believe it is a U-turn.
Talk now to Alex Rogers, our political correspondent, who's here with us. I mean, look, there's kind of two parts to this: the kind of political argument about whether these U-turns are damaging or not, and then also, of course, the bulk of the policy. Just explain what's going on with digital ID cards first, shall we?
Yeah, so there's a bit of confusion this morning. So the mandatory digital ID cards that we saw them put pictures out of, that they were saying they were going to have to be used to right to work by 2029, that's gone. So what it seems like is that they still want mandatory digital right to work checks, but it doesn't have to be that card. So it could be a passport or a visa. So it's going from a kind of mandatory basis to a voluntary basis, which kind of defeats the entire purpose, really, of what they were trying to do.
Albeit, I'd just say on that front, if they're still bringing in, which they are, digital ID cards, or the plan is still by 2029, and they're clamping down on companies that employ people illegally, I think the vast majority of employers will use this new tool that allows them to make sure they clamp down on it. So it's quite an interesting, I'd say, nuanced U-turn. It's the headline policy that I think came out last year was we're going to bring in digital ID cards that caused a lot of ire amongst some groups. And if that's still proceeding, they might still get the grief of the policy and the grief of the U-turn part.
Yes, I mean, there's just still so much confusion, really, and they want to move away from a paperless system, which she was saying that was a mishmash of paper documents to a digital way of working. But yeah, I mean, it's just not clear, really.
What's the kind of Labour MP view on it, Alex? Were they kind of pro-digital ID cards because of the reasons that Keir Starmer said, or had they done this in the face of more backbench unhappiness?
So I think the immigration argument, sort of clamping down on illegal migrants slipping into the shadows, as he put it, into these kind of nail bars and car washes, he's mentioned those before. I think maybe that was the most persuasive argument. But there's still a lot of unease around the big brother argument, and they're clamping down on civil liberties, and the fact that it wasn't in the manifesto as well. Some Labour MPs felt uneasy about pushing something that wasn't put to the public in the last general election.
I mean, it's funny, one of the best arguments for it, which I'm surprised they never used, is that big US tech companies gather more of the data than any of us are aware of. Yeah. And rather than that happening, the government could do it. I mean, at least then everyone's kind of aware. And, it's not like it's a super positive argument necessarily, but I think it's a relevant one. And it's not used.
I mean, if I look at my kind of Instagram, For You feed or whatever, they know everything about me. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how they're getting all this stuff.
I think an interesting side kind of point to this is I feel like people's trust in the state has really taken a knock since COVID. I think people are much more sceptical about what governments are doing. So maybe that's another reason why they scale back on doing this.
The only other flip point I would just make as well is that when Tony Blair wanted ID cards, government ID cards, didn't have digital back in the 90s.
Good old plastic card.
Exactly. What they could give you in terms of easing your life was relatively basic, whereas today it really can improve everyone's lives quite significantly. You might say it's not worth it for the freedom argument, but it can drastically change the chance of you being hacked, illegal work, for example, and all sorts of things on that regard.
Yeah, we should talk quickly about the Chinese embassy, because this is one that I know an awful lot of people have concerns about. This is the planning application that China has put in for a new embassy in London, and it's a big application, isn't it?
It's a big application, it's controversial. A lot of MPs are very concerned about the security implications. And I thought it was interesting in your interview with the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander. She was very keen to pass the buck on to Steve Rood, I thought. Yeah. She was saying, it's on his desk, he's the Community Secretary, it's one for him. She clearly
poor old Steve Rood.
Yeah. Didn't want to get into such a knotty issue for this government and governments before it of how do we deal with China.
Yeah, and I guess some of the concern is about where it's placed as well, isn't it? That it is in an area of London where there are all these cables underneath it going into the City of London. I mean, you probably know a bit more about that.
No, I mean, I think that is the key concern of people who are against it, which is whether or not they could then, hack into those cables and steal information. I think the broader point of it being a really big embassy in central London, if people are kind of upset about that, well, they bought this building, they're applying for it to have their embassy. They've got an embassy already. I mean, I think, we're not going to shut them out and not give them an embassy at all.
By the way, I said that Wilfred should know more about that because he knows a lot about finance, not because he knows a lot about hacking into underground cables, just to clarify.
And building big embassies, all my expertise. I'll get my hard hat out and go down and help them.
Alex, thank you.
That would be a good way to punish them. Say that I have to help them build it.
Now, look, we're talking a lot about another government policy today as well, and this is one of those government policies that we should cover because it could make a real difference to people's lives. It's an investment in train services between northern cities, including a new railway line that's going to be built between Birmingham and Manchester. Work won't start, though, until after 2030. We can talk now to Sadia Chowdhury, who's got more details for us. What's happening?
So potentially great news for people that travel between Manchester and Birmingham. We know two huge cities and a huge number of people travel between them. The announcement that there's to be a new line, potential excitement, because we know these things sometimes they don't always get to where they're planned to, but there are a few other details about this. So no details about where the money is coming from to fund this, but also no timetable, no timescale on when this might be completed. What we do know that is going to be between Birmingham and Manchester, and the Treasury says it won't be a reinstatement of the HS2. And you'll remember that, the planned extension which Rishi Sunak scrapped in 2023 in order to save money. So in the absence of information that we're not getting, we're going to rely on existing things to try and figure out. So what we do know is that the land that was obtained for HS2 is being kept while this project goes underway. So that could be a hint of where this line is going to be built. But also the Treasury says the new line won't open until after the completion of Northern Powerhouse Rail, and that is the one that goes east to west, connecting cities across England there. The Prime Minister says the government is rolling up its sleeves to complete that. That's set to complete around 2030, so we expect the new Birmingham to Manchester line to begin after that. And we know that the NPR line received so much sort of positive attention after it was announced, and we expect the same for this one.
Once it opens, at least.
They
do take a while, these things, across all parties over many decades. But it is mad how slow we are to build roadways relative to other countries.
We'll be here lots of times in between then talking about delays and frustrations around it.
And also, it's classic, I should say, that the big investment we've had so far, you know, the Elizabeth line in London, connecting London to Birmingham. I mean, I'm sorry, but politicians talk a good game about improving rail services and transport in other parts of the country. But, you know, let's see if it happens.
Heidi Alexander, by the way, this isn't her fault, I'm just saying, in your interview pointed to the fact that as in well done us, Labour, because Gordon Brown commissioned the Elizabeth line in 2007, highlighting how long it took to... When did it open? 3 years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, gosh.
Yeah.
But yeah, good news when it's finished.
Potentially.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Now, in the last hour, we've had the results of the government's latest auction of offshore wind power. And this should matter to you because it could have an impact on bills.
So, did they get a good deal? How will it impact your bills? Well, Paul Kelso's here to break down all of the numbers for us, and he's got some charts, Paul.
I've got some charts.
Oh, look at this. This is exciting.
It's very exciting. Let's see if we can make it work, unlike a British railway line. Shall I go this side? Will that be easier for people? So, auctions for wind power happen annually. The idea is to invite companies in to generate as much capacity as possible. And we've got the results this morning of the latest auction. We see it's in at the end there. 2025, the government has agreed over 8 gigawatts of capacity at just under £90. What this chart shows is in the price in the annual auctions going back to 2014. What can we see? It got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and then it's got more expensive again. That gap there in 2022 was when the government set the price, the reserve price, effectively far too low. Nobody bid. That was a big stall on the attempts to build renewable capacity. But the message of this auction, one of the messages is it's getting more expensive. Forgive me, it's like a British railway, isn't it? This is going so far. How much capacity have they achieved? The aim of these things is to get as much capacity as possible. Just over 8 gigawatts in this allocation up to 2025, because that's when the auction began. This tells us how much offshore wind capacity there is out there in the North Sea. The government's target is at least 43 gigawatts by 2030. That's a misprint. It's going very well. To help deliver a clean grid by 2030. We've got about 17 that's operational, another 12 under construction. So this is all going to have to come on stream and some more if the government's going to hit that target. How does it compare with other forms of renewable and other energy that use this particular method of selling power into the system, which basically guarantees a fixed price to the developer, but also should put a cap on how much the consumer pays? You see, solar is the cheapest, a little over 70, 80 pounds in 2025 prices. Then offshore wind, if we look down here, nuclear, Hinkley Point, when that comes on stream, that's going to be well over 120, and some of the more in development technologies are costing more. This is interesting. The wholesale price of electricity last year, I've put it in there because it's a number you're going to hear today from opponents of this rush to renewables, who will say, what is the point in agreeing 20-year contracts at £90 when the average wholesale price of electricity in the market, that's everything in there, gas particularly, is less? Well, the government will argue you're not comparing like with like. That is the price of producing power from existing power stations, existing gas power, existing wind, existing nuclear. This is the cost of new power. Actually, they're going to say that actually if you want to build new power stations, you'd be talking more like £140 a year. Government and Ed Miliband will insist this price will bring down prices, even though it's high. Why will it do that? Because it will help break the link with gas. At the moment, in the British electricity market, gas sets the price of power almost all of the time. This is gas prices going back 6 years. We know what this is. This is the Ukraine war. Massive energy spike caused rampant inflation, pushed prices out of control, cost the state about $100 billion underwriting our energy bills. This push to renewables is all about reducing our reliance on gas. If it goes to the end there, gas has come down, could come down further if there's peace in Ukraine, a big if. It could get much cheaper and make this argument harder to maintain, but it's still getting on for 40% higher. So breaking that link is what this is all about. So I hope we can all see the light now.
Yeah,
we can.
And you're in the light as well.
And now
Perfect.
finally
it's like
in
a
the
disco
light. You just
in
managed to
here.
plug in one of those wind turbines.
Yeah, exactly.
Paul, really interesting. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Now, we're talking reading because it is the National Year of Reading. It's something I personally feel very passionately about, I should say, because the stats are pretty stark. I just want to bring some from you. So, for example, this is the National Literary Trusts. They say only 1 in 3 children and young people report enjoying reading in their spare time. This is the lowest level since 2005, just 1 in 3. And also, you know, there's a lack of reading among adults as well. So reading is in decline. Does it matter? Some people would say that who cares? You know, it's a form of entertainment. Doesn't matter. Me personally, I think it matters a lot, and I think our next guest does as well, which I'm very pleased to introduce. Someone you might recognise, Alexander Armstrong. Great to have you.
Good morning.
Very good morning.
Yeah, very good morning. I'm interested to hear what you're saying, but I think yes, it's vital. I mean, it's absolutely vital on so many different levels. I mean, it's not only great for opening up our imaginations and opening up our ability to socialise. It's a wonderful reason for drawing in other people and listening to other people's opinions. But the outcomes of people who read for pleasure from an early age are so demonstrably better, better capability at dealing with mental health issues. You have a much better balance, you have a much better empathy. I mean, on every single metric you look at, reading is the one thing. I mean, if there were no other reason to try and persuade parents to get children to read, it is look at the data, see what it does for the outcomes of your children.
I'm interested in the mental health thing because I am somebody who reads for, you know, my kind of well-being, if you know what I mean. I mean, you're kind of an exercise guy, aren't you? I think people use different things.
I can read
life.
though as well.
No, obviously.
I suspected you. I had you down as literate.
But for me, it's a big part of making myself feel okay about stuff.
Well, I think it does. I mean, reading takes you to extraordinary places, and so it should. I mean, some of them can be rather dark, some of them can be rip-roaringly funny. But the fact is, it opens up your imagination, and it stimulates so many different parts of your ability to project, I suppose. And this is a really key part of being able to cope with whatever life throws at you.
Why do you think the statistics have gotten worse? Is it as simple as we've got screens and that's competing for our time?
I'm so reluctant to say yes, because that feels like an easy answer, but probably because we've got screens. I suspect screens do actually devour a lot of time. But I think we all have such curiosity. Everybody, we're born to be curious. I mean, it's a natural part of our sort of hunger. We need information, and reading is the best possible way of finding it. I mean, I find I was sort of addicted to reading so much that I'd read the back of deodorant cans. I'd read the back of cereal packets if there's nothing else to read, just because I wanted to know. I wanted to have stuff.
I'm like this. I'm the sort of person who reads the shampoo in the shower.
Yes, exactly. Otherwise, why would you just be standing there?
I can't be left alone with my thoughts.
But you know, the whole point of this lovely Year of Reading initiative is that we're encouraging people. it doesn't have to be reading from a book. It doesn't have to be sort of, reading from a traditional book. Audiobooks, graphic novels, fanzines, whatever. I mean, go online and read stuff there, but really indulge your curiosity.
But I wanted to ask about audiobooks because for so many of the benefits of reading, do we not have to be actually reading rather than listening?
I don't know. I think I tend to have two books on at the same time. I read a book that I have on my bedside table, and I have a book on audio that I
literally at the same time,
exercising.
Not exactly.
No, I couldn't do that. And that'd be a waste of both books, I think. But if I'm exercising, if I'm on the tube, if I'm anything, any time when I wouldn't be reading, I listen. So I've worked through, and actually my trick is to go through the classics on Audible, because it's just terrific fun. If you've got Martin Jarvis reading Dickens to you, it's so much more fun than it was when you sat reading through it. I mean, I've even done Moby Dick on Audible, which is superb. And actually, suddenly, it's really funny. Who knew Moby Dick was funny?
I love it. I was interested about the graphic novel thing as well, because I think a lot of parents are trying to, get their kids to read longer books, but actually stuff like Dogman, for example, has been like runaway successes. Should we be okay if our kids are reading these comics?
Dogman, and it's brilliant. It's so inspired, and it's just so fantastic.
It's funny.
It's sort of psychotropic as well. It's really funny. It's funny, but it's got real thought and structure behind it.
We've got some of your favourite suggestions, I think.
Yeah, we do.
Which have come. Should we do the kids ones first?
Yeah, let's do kids first.
Do you know what's a little embarrassing? Is one of my all-time favourite books you put on your kids list. This would be on my adult. I thought the Philip Pullman trilogy. Was fantastic.
Yeah.
But I did. Maybe I was a late teenager,
I think they are sort of adult books as well. All the best kids' books are adult books as well. I read.
These are some of my favourite books.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Let's have a look. So these are the 3 kids' books. So this is the first one, Emil and the Detectives, which I haven't heard of. This sounds like...
it's a superb book. Yeah. I love it because my obsession is storytelling and good comic observation and good thumbnail. If you can get character and plot over in as few lines as possible, and Eric Kessner does that with this. It's a superb story set in Berlin. I don't know, in the 30s maybe. But it's just a great story. There's a clear baddie, there's some terrible injustice, and Emil, just through sheer decency and force of personality and warmth, gets this sort of team of kids to... They ensnare the guy who's nicked all his money.
We've got Philip Pullman.
Set your second book for kids or adults.
I think all adults. I've just finished reading this one. This is from the second trilogy. So the Book of Dust, La Belle Sauvage, is just... It's a beautifully written story, and Pullman it's a parallel universe. There's something incredibly poetic about the similarities between our world and the differences between our world and that. We live in Oxford, so I know a lot of the landmarks there, but it's just, I adore it.
And then finally, we've got The Beast and the Bethany. This is Jack Maddock.
I selected, this is one of my favourites of things I've read, but there are so many brilliant current novels. Another one I should have put on there actually is Alice Oseman's Heartstopper series, which is the graphic novel. That's another easy one to pick up. But Jack's book, The Beast and the Bethany, is hilarious. I've been reading it to our youngest. He actually asked me to stop putting one of the voices of one of the characters, the Beast. I was quite pleased.
I bet you do very good voices.
Well, we know your voices, of course, from Hey Duggee. I have to say, this. I mean, I don't know if Alexander is the voice of Hey Duggee, which is an iconic kids' TV show. I have to say.
Thank you.
And actually, there's a point to be made about quality kids' TV programming as well, because I guess there's difference in. If we're talking about screens, that there is a difference if you're watching a quality kids' TV programme or short-term
on YouTube.
But adult game shows also to be supported as well.
I think absolutely to be supported. And you'll notice we read from the board.
Yeah,
we
what
use
a good reading.
Literature,
How fun was Hey Duggee?
Enormous fun. Enormous fun. I mean, the great pleasure for me is characters and stories. And part of what I would love to urge people to do in this National Year of Reading is to get into the habit of reading to their kids and put on silly voices. Do all of that stuff, really indulge that stuff, because kids adore it.
It's great. It's great advice. Thank you very much indeed. It's so good.
Great pleasure.
Alexander,
Thank you.
Great to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Let us know, by the way, if you want to share your favourite books, favourite adult books, favourite kids' books. We're interested to hear them. Get some recommendations down there as well.
We're going to be right back. We're going to be talking more about the situation in Iran.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report, and this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Welcome back. Let's get more now on our top story. A human rights agency has said more than 2,500 people have been killed while protesting in Iran, with thousands arrested. Some estimates suggest the numbers could be higher. President Trump has urged demonstrators to stay on the streets and warned of very strong action if the country's regime executes those that they've detained during the clashes. Well, let's discuss this further with the British-Iranian investigative reporter and documentary filmmaker Sahar Zand. A very good morning to you. Thanks so much for coming in.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
What's the latest that you're hearing of, I guess, the scale of the protests, the extent to which they're ongoing and the clampdown?
The latest number that has been confirmed by Iranian authorities, who apparently said to Reuters journalists, is 2,000, and that is very conservative. If they are saying this number, human rights groups that are closely monitoring the events in Iran are saying that the number could be much, much higher. The latest number I've heard is that it could be as high as 20,000. And that's hardly surprising because the footage we're getting from Iran, the UGC, the videos that people are managing to get out, which has been so difficult. It's only possible through Starlink, which is a crime to have in Iran. It's a VPN that allows you to be able to communicate with outside without internet during shutdowns like this. We have seen authorities opening fire to everyone and anyone on the street. That's why amongst many of those killed are actually children. I have managed to get in touch with a few protesters on the ground, including sources, for the first time since the blackout began. And I have found some incredibly shocking things that have been happening. I mean, I'm even struggling to put this in words because just as you think the brutality of the Islamic Republic can't get worse, they come out and do worse. So I've heard that obviously hospitals are overflowing. There are certain hospitals that protesters can't go to because we saw this happened in the previous protests when protesters went to certain hospitals. The authorities of those hospitals actually reported them to the police, to the authorities, and they ended up getting arrested. And later, the fact that they were in hospitals during that time was used against them to essentially execute them or imprison them. What I've heard is that families who go to collect the corpses of their loved ones who've been killed during these protests have to not only pay hefty fines, like huge fines, more than their monthly average earning, to collect these bodies, but they're also being made to pay for the bullets that were used to kill them.
Gosh.
As on top of that, another thing that's emerging is the fact that in order for families to receive the bodies of their loved ones, they're made to sign documents confirming that, yes, my relative, this friend, this person whose body I'm here to collect was a spy for Israel, was a spy for America, just to feed into this narrative that the Islamic Republic is trying to tell.
There's obviously lots of reasons why the protesters are on the streets. To what extent is one of them the hope or belief that there will be help from the outside? And to what extent are the latest comments overnight, clear comments from President Trump saying we will come to your aid, to your side, reaching those protesters?
Look, like many Iranians, I am also very conflicted about foreign interference. Why? Because look at our very recent history. Look at what happened with Iraq. Look at what happened with Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan. Foreign interference comes in,
I don't think anyone believes that Trump's priority is human rights in Iran. People know this, Iranians know this. And people fear that they're like drowning, they're like someone who's drowning, right? They want any hand to help them up, but then they're worried that that hand might throw them into yet another body of water. But look at what's happening. They need help. These are civilians out on the street being killed with military-grade weapons. And without help, the bloodshed will continue. And they can only keep up these protests for so long. After the bloodshed, there will be another series of executions, right? So they need help. There is a power imbalance. But what will happen afterwards is something that many are worried about. Iranians want this regime gone. They want this regime toppled. They are proving this by standing on the streets of Iran up until this point. But without the help of people like Trump or outside governments, they can't achieve that. At the same time, they want a future that's democratic, that they can choose, and they don't want what's happened in many countries that I mentioned to happen to them. They are hearing it and they are helpful because, honestly, they have nobody else to help them right now.
Zahar Sand, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. British-Iranian documentary filmmaker.
Extraordinary to hear some of these details about Iran. It really is. We talk about AI next, something that we've been talking about a lot because, look, it's changing everything, right? We talked a lot about jobs, about the economy, all that kind of thing, but it's also having an impact in a more, I guess, kind of personal way in the relationships that we're having too.
Some striking statistics from a study by the think tank, the Autonomy Institute. They say 200 million people worldwide have downloaded AI companions. 4 out of 5 young people in the UK have interacted with one, and 1 out of 2 are regular users.
And I can't believe I'm saying this on air, but the era of AI sexting has arrived as well. 1 in 10 young people say they've had a romantic or a sexual conversation with an AI companion. So what on earth is going on there? We're also seeing AI chatbots being used to fill a bit of a mental health vacuum as well. Half of Brits say they feel comfortable at having therapeutic conversations with AI as well.
Well, James Malden joins us, the author of Love Machines. Thanks so much for joining us. Good to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Can I just check what we mean by an AI companion? If we're saying 200 million people, so is that just the use of a ChatGPT, or is this something specifically designed to be your companion?
So an AI companion is an app with an AI that's been designed specifically to simulate a human relationship. So that could be your friend, your partner, your therapist, your mentor. And that 200 million figure is of apps that have been specifically designed for that purpose. Wow. So we know many people are actually using Claude and ChatGPT to do similar things. So the actual figure could be much more.
Yeah, because ChatGPT or whatever program it is, you can also ask these quite personal questions, life advice or whatever it is as well. I mean, people do it all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
Although, to those, it's not that dissimilar from asking a question to Google, I guess. But anyway, either way, these numbers are strikingly high. And what is the kind of reason pushing people towards that? It must stem from some form of initial loneliness.
Yeah, we all know that we're living through a loneliness epidemic, and like 1 in 2 British young people will say that loneliness negatively impacts their mental health. We know that it can be as bad for you as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And so many of the people I spoke to for research for my book were telling me that, you know, they're lonely, they're isolated, they felt vulnerable. And it's in these moments that people are reaching out to AI as a source of friendship, of companionship, and just to kind of starve off that loneliness.
I mean, in some ways it sounds quite positive, but I guess the question that I have is whenever because I obviously, like many people, like most people probably, you know, use ChatGPT and you end up having conversations almost like with these AI programs. But it's such a people pleaser. I feel like it's always just telling me what it thinks I want to hear. And if I come back saying something else, then it just switches it up. Oh, you were completely right. Sophie, you're a genius. Is that really healthy? It's probably not, is it?
Yeah, that's also how I experience ChatGPT as well, that it's kind of overly agreeable to the point of sycophantic.
Yeah.
And I think one of
Come on, challenge me a bit.
Yeah,
Tell me
one
I'm
of
wrong.
the issues with the AI companions is that you kind of lose the depth and richness of human relationships, which, as we know, has to include moments of criticism, of judgment, of healthy boundaries. And I think when you come to AI companions, you lose a bit of that kind of friction and that dissonance that is really healthy and a normal part of human relationships.
One thing I've noticed from your book is companies are starting to offer the recreation of deceased people, of friends or family members that have died. Is that really a thing?
Yeah, so one of the use cases for this is actually simulating a deceased loved one, whether that's a child or an elder relative that has been lost. And it's a kind of frontier, I guess, use case. It's not as popular as the friendship, but I guess the issue is, how does that impact someone's grief? Is this actually going to make things better, or is it actually just going to prolong the experience because your mind can't get used to what it's like to not have that person in your life anymore?
Can I ask about mental health as well? Because, look, mental health services are massively stretched here and people may have very, very long waits to get support that they need. Is it a good thing that people feel that they can use these AI programmes to get some mental health support, or actually should we be worried that so many people are using it in this way who might be vulnerable?
Yeah, so one of the findings was this is absolutely proliferated across society, particularly for younger people, precisely because mental health support is so hard to get. It can be expensive. There's a big psychological barrier about speaking to another human being about your mental health. So young people in particular are just, many of them are chatting to these AI companions. And the real issue here is they're not designed to provide mental health support, right? They're designed for entertainment, for companionship. So it's really problematic just how widespread this is, because it's a tool and a piece of technology that's simply not designed to diagnose mental health issues. It's not designed to treat them or to know the kind of correct things to say or when to refer someone to further specialist help. It's a huge danger for a lot of young people if they are coming to these AI companions for the purposes of mental health.
So
James,
interesting.
Really interesting. Thanks so much for joining us. Much
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time now to have a look at the weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
So the next few days look pretty changeable when it comes to the weather. Impactful weather possible in the south tomorrow. Hopefully we'll find out what that means in the next few moments. Well, it's frosty for many, some freezing fog and icy stretches. Also, you can expect a largely dry and sunny morning once early fog lifts, but England's southernmost counties will become grey and damp. Cloud, rain and strong winds will also move into the west of Ireland and the Outer Hebrides. Early showers over mainland Scotland will mostly fade, and it will be quite cold, colder than recent days, especially for England and Wales. The afternoon will see some wind and rain spreading across the west, and more of the south will turn dull and also pretty damp.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Coming up, we're talking flooding. Millions more people at risk of having their homes and businesses flooded. We'll speak to a charity seeing a big increase in demand for support.
People that pod together, they have a little hive brain going on. They've not had a good week.
I've had a good week. There's a teaser there, a teaser.
Oof. OK, nothing to see here. Drama over. Full stop. Anyway, we'll get to that. She will be mortified.
Because she's the first female chancellor.
I popped upstairs, made myself a cheese sandwich, and now I'm with you.
Annalise has come dressed in the magenta of electoral dysfunction. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. President, what will you see next to Benjamin Netanyahu? In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent. I've interviewed some of America's most recognisable politicians. Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from the UK?
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting.
Mr Walker, you're anti-abortion, but 2 women say that you paid for their abortions. Are you a hypocrite, sir?
Connor, what did you say to the president? What did you say?
We had a great meeting. He was a great man.
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents based in Washington, D.C.
David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that?
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here.
Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism?
I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
The anger too, and the division.
Where are you from? From Sky News, UK.
Yeah.
Back up.
Mr Navarro,
Well, it's my... I'm allowed to ask questions, aren't I?
I'm Mark Stone, and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding, Mr. Musk. Has your ego and ignorance, sir, cost Ukrainian lives?
David Cameron needs to worry about his own country, and frankly, he can kiss my ass.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody?
Free wherever you get your news.
What words do you have for Harry Dunn's family today?
Have a nice day.
Do you fear a 4th indictment?
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started. Hello again. We're talking flooding now because, look, there's warnings that it's one of the most pressing emergencies facing the United Kingdom today.
More than 6 million homes in England alone are already at risk of flooding from rivers, the sea or sewage, and that number is expected to rise to 8 million, roughly 1 in 4 of us.
Well, we can talk now to the Managing Director of Flooded People UK, Louis Ramirez. Look, those stats just say it all, really, don't they, just how widespread this is. How much of an emergency is it?
I think it's huge. I mean, every winter what you're getting is entire parts, particularly on the West Coast, but across the country, just hunkering down and getting near miss after near miss, and then maybe they flood, maybe they don't. But if you've been through it once, then that is basically the threats of having to leave your home again for up to a year, at least 9 months, even more than a year sometimes, just kind of hovering over your life in that particular way. And it's absolutely terrorizing for people.
8 million homes, or whatever the statistic we just said, is such a staggering number. Have we built homes in the wrong place? I mean, it sounds like a silly question, but what can we do to solve it? Because it's such a drastic number. It's not like you can move that many homes.
Yeah, we've certainly built a lot of homes in the wrong place. I think the statistics that come from the insurance sector, among others, I don't remember exactly, but it was around 10% of the homes were built in some of your highest flood risk areas. Now, we don't have a huge amount of space in this country, and that's worth acknowledging. So some of the homes might be put in the lower risk areas, but what you've got is climate change at the same time driving up the risk, even as we build the homes in the wrong area, and even as we face the consequences of decades of underinvestment in public services and infrastructure. So that's where we're at right now. And then in terms of correcting for the problem, it's first off about fixing the trajectory. So you need to stop building homes in the wrong areas. You need to start getting the right kinds of investment and financial programs to fixing that. And sadly, we're not even seeing that right now. So it just keeps the gap between what we need to do and where we need to be and where we are just keeps growing. And that's what really, really worries me.
And I guess behind all these statistics is the people, so families who are dealing with the impact of flooding, perhaps raising kids there, trying to do the clean-up operation. Can you just give us a bit of a sense about the real-world impact this is having on people?
Yeah, it's awful. So there's the trauma, which is that your home is your safe haven for anyone. But what flooding does, one of the impacts is that it takes that away from you. So when you come home from whatever day of work, you're coming to an area that is an area of threat, and that just grinds you down every single day as things go on. But then there's the financial impact. So for those who don't have insurance, it's catastrophic. But even if you do have insurance, a lot of people have to take time off work. They have to relocate to other places that might disrupt the routines. to keep your family together. Just simple things like having healthy meals for your kids, for instance, that can become really, really difficult in temporary accommodation. So it just adds this absolutely massive pressure on you, which in many cases never goes away, because once it's happened to you once, then unless you get a really serious intervention from government, which as budgets are cut becomes rarer, then you live in the fear that it's going to happen again every single time you get the weather. And so you're glued to your phone, you get these alerts, and it's just this really long nightmare that never seems to go away. So I really can't, overstate how bad it can be on some people, and just the lengths of resilience and courage that some people have to find in themselves to cope with life after flooding. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of rain that's kind of annoying for most of us, for the people you're talking about, is probably, extremely worrying and concerning.
Louis, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to take you to Antarctica now, because scientists there have been investigating how huge underwater waves triggered by collapsing ice could be dragging warmer water up from the depths and therefore speeding up the melting of glaciers.
So they're trying to work out what's going on. They're deploying underwater drones beneath the ice. And our science editor, Tom Clark, went to Antarctica. It's an extraordinary report. Just have a look.
This submarine drone is on a pioneering mission to catch an underwater wave. When chunks of ice break off glaciers, they make quite a splash. The scientists we've come to meet suspect they may be doing a lot more, creating underwater tsunamis.
These big underwater waves with amplitudes of tens to possibly hundreds of metres, what that can do is it can mix warm, deep water with water closer to the surface. And we have to understand that in order to make those better predictions about sea ice melt.
A small fleet of these gliders is being deployed to patrol the bay and analyse passing waves for the first time. So we're picking our way right now through this crumbly ice. We have to slow right down. And all this is the residue of the massive blocks of ice that carve off the front of the glacier. And if you listen, you can hear it sometimes cracking, popping. It's the sound of air bubbles escaping after centuries trapped in the glacier's ice. And it's different to the air life on Earth breathes now, which, largely thanks to the Industrial Revolution and everything since, contains nearly twice as much carbon dioxide as it did back then. Last year was the warmest on record in Antarctica, and there's evidence faster melting is disrupting this globally connected system, the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, a revolving flow connecting all the world's oceans, acting like a planetary-scale refrigerator.
It's absorbing a lot of human-made heat, and it's taking that heat down into the bottom of this deep ocean. And what scientists really want to know is, are we at risk of it coming back into our atmosphere? And that will affect us all.
Down here, those impacts won't be subtle. 1,000 miles southeast of where we are, a team of scientists have just landed on one of Antarctica's most infamous glaciers. Their mission, to use hot water to drill into the kilometre-thick ice of the Thwaites Glacier to learn how soon it may collapse.
Thwaites has been identified as kind of the ice ocean system that's most likely to affect sea level rise over the next 100 years. If you destabilise Thwaites, it might lead to a destabilisation of the rest of the ice sheet and ice shelves around it.
It's earned the nickname the Doomsday Glacier because it holds back, like a cork in a frozen bottle, the far larger West Antarctic ice sheet. Losing both could raise global sea levels by 3 to 5 metres. The Doomsday title has raised the hackles of climate skeptics who argue it's alarmist. The truth is, the scientists don't like it either. How fast collapse will happen is still uncertain. But they're confident no humans have witnessed changes this fast. Now there's 8 billion of us. Despite being as far as you can get from civilization, this is the one place on Earth that matters to us all. Tom Clark, Sky News, Antarctica.
It's great.
It's extraordinary.
We're going to play more of it next hour, slightly different part of it as well. So, Tom will come back on and talk about it, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah. We've been talking about reading. It's National Year of Reading, and we asked you guys for your book recommendations. And as always, with our lovely morning's viewers, you haven't disappointed. We've got lots in the inbox.
So Gary Charles, who's based in North Yorkshire, recommends the Gone series by Michael Grant and the Helldivers series by Nicholas Sansbury-Smith.
Steve Williams also emailed in from Gloucester. He says he reads to his son. I love this. Lots of people, of course, reading to their kids. And he said that their favourites are Hug, We're Going on a Bear Hunt, and Winnie the Witch. I love Winnie the Witch. Such
I
a
haven't
good
read that one.
You got all this in store. It's a great, great series.
For my son or for me? Both.
Both. It's a joint pleasure.
Martin Gibbs has emailed to say The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, an old school one there.
Great one. And Matt has also emailed in from Carlisle. He says he's been reading a lot more lately. He loved Rory Stewart and also football biographies, which you can find in any charity shop. Great tip.
We are out of time for this hour. We'll be back with all the day's top news. Don't go anywhere.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today.
Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophie and Wilf, good morning from me as well. We're going to start today with Iran.
Donald Trump tells protesters in Iran that help is on the way. The speculation builds about US military intervention.
When they start killing thousands of people and now you're telling me about hanging, we'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to work out good.
26-year-old Irfan Soltani is due to be executed within hours for demonstrating against his government.
Another U-turn from Keir Starmer. Digital ID cards will no longer be mandatory to prove your right to work.
Hopes for a new rail link between Birmingham and Manchester, but not much detail on the timescale or the funding. We're going to tell you when you can expect those changes.
And under the sea in the Antarctic, our team joins scientists trying to work out how collapsing ice causes underwater tsunamis.
Good morning. Welcome to the programme. Donald Trump has told demonstrators in Iran to stay on the streets, and he's promised that help is on the way. It's the latest signal from the US president that he is prepared to use direct military action. He told US citizens last night they should leave the country immediately.
Human rights groups say more than 2,500 people have been killed in a brutal crackdown on protesters, though some estimates suggest it could be higher.
And the person you're looking at now is 26-year-old Irfan Soltani. He's one of the kind of merchants, if you like, who involved in those protests. He is due to be executed in just a matter of hours for participating in the demonstrations against the regime in Iran. It's understood Irfan was arrested in connection with protests in the city of Karaj.
Well, speaking to US media last night, President Trump said he'll take very strong action if Iran's regime were to go ahead with the execution of protesters.
If they hang them, you're going to see some things that I don't know what where you come from and what your thought process is, but you'll perhaps be very happy.
What do you mean by that?
We will take very strong action. If they do such a thing, we will take very strong action. We don't want to see what's happening in Iran happen. And, you know, if they want to have protests, that's one thing. When they start killing thousands of people, and now you're telling me about hanging, we'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to work out good.
Well, our international correspondent, Alex Rossi, has more on the situation on the ground there.
There is only a trickle of images coming out of Iran, but what they show is increasingly brutal. In this video, security forces opened fire on unarmed civilians. It's feared thousands may have been killed. Among the dead is Yassin Mizai. He was 31 years old, a student living in Italy who'd returned to Iran in the new year. His cousin, who's in Turkey, told us the situation is desperate.
I've not slept for an hour since hearing about Yassin. Many people have died. The state does not want to talk about it, and we do not have access to that information, but at least 5 people have been killed in our neighbourhood in Kermanshah. There are many others, but because there's no internet, we can't get that accurate information.
The regime is now deploying the full machinery of repression. 26-year-old Irfan Soltani was detained 6 days ago. He's now been tried and sentenced to death. He's expected to be executed within hours.
Torture, detentions, killings on the streets, very serious injuries, and then waves of execution. And we see similar trends, but in a way on a very different scale, on a much more expensive scale than what we have seen in the past.
And there are new images from the Karazak mortuary in Tehran. Rows of bodies laid out on the floor. This footage was filmed on January the 9th, but it's only been uploaded now because of an ongoing internet blackout. Activists say these people were killed by the security services. The images are too graphic to broadcast, but many of the victims appear to have gunshot wounds. Understanding where these protests are heading is increasingly difficult. The internet is blocked, and even Elon Musk's Starlink system is being jammed. Iran's leaders do not want the world to see what is happening.
God bless the USA.
The United States senses this may be a decisive moment.
And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. And I say, make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over.
Washington is now weighing its options, including the possibility of military strikes. But inside Iran, the regime is not backing down.
We are prepared for any eventuality. If they want to try the military confrontation that they tried once and failed again, we are ready. In fact, even more ready. If they want to try other options, we're also ready. Whatever option they choose, we are ready.
Despite the violent suppression, Iran's clerics are facing the most serious threat to their rule in decades. The coming hours and days will be critical. Alex Rossi, Sky News.
Of course, those protests are ongoing, and a lot of people focusing on the imminent execution of that 26-year-old protester as well. There's been a bit of an update or confirmation, I guess, of what's happened between and those relationships between the US and Iran. A senior Iranian official speaking to Reuters saying direct communication, in their words, between Washington and Tehran has been halted amid Trump's threats. This, of course, in relation to Donald Trump saying that military intervention's on the table. Yeah, making those comments to CBS overnight. Now, mandatory digital ID cards for workers were one of the high-profile policies announced last year by the Prime Minister, but the government has said they are dropping the plan, or certainly certain sections of it. So when they were announced last year, ministers said these compulsory ID cards were a key tool to crack down on illegal workers and also stop them, in Keir Starmer's words, slipping into the shadows. And it marks the 13th U-turn since the Labour government came into power in July 2024. You told us that you were going to introduce mandatory digital ID cards for all workers, and Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, said this is important because it stops people slipping into the shadow economy, and you change your mind. Look, I know, like, U-turning can be. If I could just finish the question, that'd be really appreciated. You know, people may say that some U-turns are a good thing because it shows the government is listening, that you're tweaking policy. But the sheer number of U-turns carried out by this government, 13, is there a risk that if you're positioning yourself as a reforming government, as soon as you get a bit of pushback, you crumble?
No, not at all. And I don't accept that this government has done 13 U-turns. You know, some of those things that people are claiming weren't even in our manifesto. It's right, of course, when new information...
So a U-turn only counts if it's in the manifesto, so we shouldn't trust what the Prime Minister tells us then. I can read some of to you if you want. So we've got digital ID cards, welfare spending, business rates of pubs, farmers' inheritance tax, winter fuel payments, two-child benefit cap, waspy women compensation, national grooming gangs inquiry. I mean, I could go on.
I'm sorry, Sophie, you've given the example in there, and, you know, I can come back on those. It's quite hard when we're not in the studio together to hear every single word you were saying there. But look, take the example of our decision to lift the two-child cap in universal credit. We were always clear as soon as we came into government that we were setting up a child poverty task force, and we'd look at every lever available to us to tackle the problem of child poverty in this country. I don't believe it is a U-turn. No, I don't believe it is a U-turn.
Well, lots to unpick whether or not there has been 13 U-turns or not, and also, of course, the ins and outs of this policy. Because, look, there's been a bit of a row about it. We can talk to our political correspondent, Alex Rogers. The government's saying this is all really overblown and actually it's a very small, minor detail. Is that fair?
I don't think it is. I think they have really rode back on what the policy was meant to do. So we understand that digital ID cards will no longer be required for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. What the government is saying they do want is mandatory digital right to work checks, but this could be a passport or a visa. So those ID cards that they were kind of parading around, that will become voluntary now. So that does seem like a massive roadback, really, from what they were proposing.
In terms of the kind of U-turns debate overall, where's the pressure come for this particular one? Is it from opposition sides? Is it because polls have changed? Is it backbench MPs?
I think it's a combination of all of those, actually, Wilf. So there was a petition going around that had 3 million signatures from the public saying that they didn't want this to happen. There's polling suggesting that as soon as Starmer announced it, that it became more unpopular.
Well, since it's been associated with Keir Starmer, then.
Yeah, exactly. And Labour MPs themselves were feeling uneasy about it because it wasn't in the manifesto. So it's a combination of all three, really.
And there's some people who will be saying, look, U-turning, listening to the public, that's actually a good thing. You know, the media are too quick to jump on U-turns and portray them as a bad thing. Or do you think that actually when you get to this level of change from the government, they do start to look a bit weak.
I think there's an argument for the government saying, oh, we're listening and rowing back on something that's clearly going to be unpopular. But I think the issue that they have is that they've done so many. It's 13, and over big issues like welfare and maybe even jury trials coming up, it seems like whenever they've got a bold proposal to tackle something or they've got a vision for something, they can't seem to quite get it over the line, despite that massive mandate that they won in the last election.
We also just want to get your take, whilst you're here, on this approval or not for the new Chinese embassy. It's at the site of the Royal Mint in London. It's been quite controversial. The date where they have to make the decision, albeit they've pushed this date back a few times already, is next week, the 20th of January?
So it's due either on or before the 20th of January. So, yeah, very much coming up soon. Coming up at a similar time that Keir Starmer was set to go to China himself. So probably wants to talk this up as, to try and warm up the Chinese, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, it would be pretty awkward if you blocked it and then went out to Beijing days later, right?
Yeah, and there's some reporting over the course of the last day from the likes of the Times and Telegraph suggesting the US are adding their voice on not necessarily wanting this to be approved, but I guess, it does, with that trip coming up, does look, people imagining that it will be approved.
It looks like it's going to be approved, and we're seeing more and more Labour MPs and other MPs pushing the argument against it. We've got Sarah Champion, who's the chair of the International Development Committee. She's a senior Labour MP. She's saying China is a hostile state. We've got Alicia Kearns, a senior Tory MP, saying that this could be a launch pad for economic warfare. So really, there's opposition on all sides to this plan.
Really interesting stuff. Thank you very much indeed, Alex Rogers, speaking to us there.
Now, we've had the result of the government's latest auction of offshore wind power, which it says will cut costs and carbon emissions.
So do they get a good deal? And most importantly, how will it impact your energy bills? Well, our business correspondent Paul Kelsale is here to explain all.
Yeah, well,
in the light.
In the light, yes. The new wind power has been secured, and you can see me this time round. This will affect your bills. How it will affect it is a subject of a bit of debate. I'm just going to give you a little bit of context, first of all, and show you a couple of charts. These are annual auctions for renewable capacity to be added to the grid of all kinds, and this is a focus on offshore wind, which is going to be crucial to hitting the government's target of a clean grid by 2030. Of the energy transition in the UK depends on using that resource of offshore wind. So we've had the results back, and let's show quickly a couple of charts which help. Are we going to see them? Here we go. There we go. This shows us the prices agreed. This is annual auctions going back to the first one in 2014, when the price per megawatt hour was over £160. See the dark blue at the far end? That's the price announced today, just under £91. You can see it's about 10% higher than 2023. The gap in 2022 was when the government set the price, the reserve price, far too low, and developers weren't interested. But what you can see is that price of building offshore wind has been rising steadily. It got very cheap in the early 2020s, but inflation and the cost of financing these projects has pushed prices up. So the cost of renewable power and building new capacity is growing. That's unarguable. How much capacity is there? Well, this was a lot. This is the biggest ever. So we've got 8.4 gigawatts of new power. That's the dark blue slug there. A gigawatt is about 1 million homes can be powered. Gives you an idea. The government's target to get to this clean grid by 2030 is to have 43. We've got about 17 that's built and operational, another 11 or so that's under construction. So they are in striking distance of hitting Ed Miliband's target. They've broken the back of it, but all of this needs to be online and working for that to happen, and they still need a bit more. But I think that is a position they didn't expect to be in a couple of years ago, and they are very pleased about that. Now, one interesting thing about this price agreed, £91, is actually a bit higher than the wholesale cost of electricity from all sources, from gas, from nuclear, from solar, for the last year. And that's politically difficult, right? If you're paying more for renewables than the wholesale market will bear. Government rejects that comparison, so the better comparison is this. This is the levelised cost of electricity. Basically, it's all in. Build it, maintain it, manage the grid. What does it cost you per megawatt hour? Today's price, £91 for offshore wind. For a new gas power station, figures from Desnes today, and this is backed by some other consultants, I think it's nearly £150 if you were building gas from scratch to meet all the new demand that we're going to have from AI and the other demands on electrification of the UK's systems. So you're going to have the government, and they have been. I've just been on a call with a man called Chris Stark, who chairs what's called, or heads mission control for Ed Miliband, used to head the Climate Change Committee, and he is very bullish. This is a tremendous result in his view, and they think they are on track, and they're very confident that bills will come down in what is a very complex picture, but they will come down despite sticking to renewables. And you'll hear the opposite argument from the Conservatives.
That last chart you showed was very striking. Does that then include the extra taxes that are levied against oil and gas? So if those, because I guess if you're comparing like for like, would you have to take those away?
It's a good question, and given some of the companies building wind power are also generating oil and gas, I guess one answer is that they're paying tax on all their revenues. There is extra taxation. I can't answer that directly. My hunch is no, that is about the levelised cost of electricity, rather than what happens to the profits, ultimately, which is where the taxes land. The Conservatives' argument is, as we know, and Kemi Badenoch said the other day, the number one thing she would do for the economy is resume drilling new contracts for drilling. That's something in the North Sea, something Labour don't want to do. They believe that these contracts are agreed today, they go 20 years now, not 15 years. So that's a fixed price for the developer well into the 2040s. Their argument is that's like a fixed price mortgage when actually the variable rate is lower. As I say, the government reject that, and the question they would ask is, if you're not going to build renewables to meet all this demand for more electricity, we're going to electrify our lives as well as demanding more for the new industries, what are you going to do? You've got to do something. Doing nothing isn't an option. But I'm expecting Ed Miliband to stick very, very bullishly to his position on the back of this result.
Paul Grosef, thank you so much.
I just got a bit of breaking news to bring you now, and this is over that decision to ban fans of the Israeli football team Maccabi Tel Aviv from the match with Aston Villa. There's been a big controversy about it, and the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police giving evidence to the Home Affairs Select Committee. Just an update on that. He's now had to apologise to MPs for giving them an error in his evidence over that decision to ban the fans. This is the Chief Constable at Craig Guilford. He's written to the Home Affairs Committee apologising for the mistake. And it feels that that mistake is about whether or not AI tools were used in order to bring the evidence together. He made a mistake. He's had to apologise and write to the committee. This is very, very significant because right now, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is considering whether or not she should say that she has no confidence in him if they find that he misled MPs, and he's already had to apologise there.
And we'll get the view on that from the Conservatives up next with the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Just discuss. Welcome back. A new report suggests Russia's financing a wave of sabotages across Europe using cryptocurrencies for payments. It comes amid rising tensions on the continent. And the report's author, the Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, warns new counter-terror financing powers may be needed to stem the attacks. We'll discuss this further with the director of the Centre for Finance and Security at RUSI, Tom Keating. Thanks so much for joining us, Tom. So just summarise the sort of headline point of this. You've identified a lot of sabotage from Russia across Europe.
Yes, I think that's not an unknown fact. 2022, there were 2 attacks. 2024, there were 34 attacks. So the numbers are rising rapidly. I think what we are looking at in this paper is how these attacks are being financed. They're not being conducted by Russian agents. They're being conducted by individuals who essentially get recruited online, get offered some money, and go into the town centre, throw a firebomb, try and blow up a railway line, whatever it might be.
Are they aware of who they're doing that for? Not that it's okay, but I'm just interested to if they're aware of who's behind the money they're being offered.
So I mean, these people are on a journey. Often they're on social media platforms like Telegram, and they come across an opportunity to earn money. Perhaps they're also at the same time buying drugs, and so this is an opportunity to pay for their drugs. And they're offered a menu of things to do. So for them, it's a financial transaction. Whether it's for the Russian state or anything else really doesn't bother them. It's not an ideological decision, it's a financial decision.
And with that, again, just to sort of follow up, do you think most of these people are kind of doing it after they get blackmailed? Again, not that would make it okay, or out of choice purely for financial offers?
It's out of choice. They're either people who are down and out. They are people who, as I say, are looking for money in order to pay for a drugs hit. They are what one intelligence agency in Europe calls disposable agents. They are agents for a day who get attracted by money, get the offer of cryptocurrency most often, and then go and conduct whatever attack it is they're asked to conduct. Sometimes they don't even get paid. I mean, that's another issue in all of this. They really are abused by the Russian state to try and undermine confidence in security across Europe.
And finally, what would be your advice on how we can clamp down on it?
Well, these are essentially lone actors, and dealing with lone actor threats is something that European security services have unfortunately been very used to, dealing with lone actor terrorism. We have a huge canon of legislation and capability that we can use against these individuals, not treating them as criminals, but treating them essentially as terrorists. And we should be unleashing those capabilities to deal with this threat, rather than treating them as isolated criminal incidents.
Tom, thanks so much for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Coming up, we are going to be taking you to Antarctica. We've got the most incredible pictures to show you after the break. Our science editor, Thomas Clark, has been there. Tom Clark. Good morning. Welcome back to the programme. We had a bit of breaking news to bring you before, and this is, of course, was about the decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from that match with Aston Villa. Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, Craig Guilford, wrote to the Home Affairs Select Committee in the last few moments, basically apologising, saying that he provided incorrect evidence to them because an AI programme, Microsoft Copilot, was used in order to draft up incorrect information in that report that then led to the decision to ban those fans. Of course, this will only step up pressure on Craig Guilford, the Chief Constable. He said he didn't know until Friday afternoon. We can talk to the opposition about this and other subjects as well. We're joined now by the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Dame Priti Patel. It's great to have you with you. It's breaking news. You've literally just found out about it since coming in the studio. What is your reaction to
Well, I'm alarmed by this, and as a former Home Secretary that has worked on policing at every single level, including when it comes to football, by the way, this is alarming. The police always have proper information to inform their decision-making, including for football matches and fan protection and operational policing. This is deeply alarming. I see that this is a letter to the chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, Dame Karen Bradley, but actually, bear in mind, I think Craig Guilford's position was pretty untenable anyway, even before this has come out. I just don't see how he can survive this, and I think he should just get on and resign now.
What can the Home Secretary do? She can't sack him, right? But she could say that she doesn't have confidence.
So it's about having confidence, whether or not you have confidence in the Chief Constable. And in light of this has just become an absolute saga. And it's put a real spotlight, basically, in terms of policing decision-making and conduct, and just the sheer unprofessionalism, the way in which people, it appears, were lent on in terms of decision-making. That is not right. The police are meant to be operationally independent, and from what we have seen through various select committee appearances, the information that he claims to have brought forward, the case that is made, it's inconsistent and it is simply not right. So I think the Home Secretary does have to step in now. I think she's dragged her heels for too long, if I may say so as well. This has been going on since December last year, and this has just gone on for too long. And I think now a line in the sand has to be drawn on this. I personally watched, the whole saga around the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans being not able to go and the whole issue with fans. I just thought the whole thing was completely...
What the government says in this is that they have to wait for this report. They want to find out if it does come out that he misled Parliament over it, and then that's the right time for a decision.
So, Sophie, you could argue with this apology, that report now might be delayed even further, because that's more information that they might have to go back and question him on. So I think actually it's his time to take action. The longer this carries on, by the way, think about West Midlands as a police force, one of the largest police forces in the country. They've got a range of other issues going on there. They need strong leadership right now.
I want to talk to you about Iran, because we're seeing more and more people in Iran dying, being killed, potential executions about to happen about these protests. Donald Trump's promised them that help is on the way. Would you back American airstrikes?
So we don't know what that help that's on the way is going to look like. And, we've read reports overnight that America is looking at all options. So we're not in that territory of even sort of backing action right now. I do think there are things that we can do and our government should be doing domestically in the UK, and also even with our security and intelligence services, which are first class. So we have cyber offensive capabilities where we could actually strike the Iranian regime and stop them from doing what they're doing in terms of blocking their citizens to have access to the internet, for example.
So do you think that's something that the UK should be
looking at doing? We can do that.
Doing?
And by the way,
cyber...
so we're a Five Eyes country, so we work with our security and intelligence services across Five Eyes countries, including America. So we could do that. We have the National Cyber Security Centre.
But should we do it?
Yes, we should. We should. I absolutely believe we should. We should not be sitting on our hands. This is a regime that's hostile to our country. This is a country, Iran is a country that sent their own assassins to our country. They have their proxies here. They're a hostile state to us. We had Iranians arrested in our country just last year.
Although the West doesn't have a great track record of intervention in the Middle East. Some would say that, look, it's got to come from the Iranian people.
Well,
Any sign of Western powers getting getting involved could actually harm their cause?
Well, I think first and foremost, the Iranian people, they're dying for their freedom. They are protesting against a totalitarian, extreme regime that's been there for nearly 5 decades now. And they're a young country still. Look at the ages of the people that are dying for their freedom. You know, I think for us to sit on our hands is simply not acceptable. And by the way, the government has said that they'll bring in more sanctions. Sanctions take time. Iran busts sanctions. They circumvent sanctions as well. So on things such as cyber capabilities and using our national security tools, we should use them because it also keeps our country safe too.
Can I ask you quickly about this Chinese embassy application? We're expecting the result of that in the coming days. Some people are saying that, look, you know, China is someone we've got to do business with. They've got a right to have an embassy in London. Others are saying, hang on a minute, because of the location of this, they've got real concerns. Where do you sit?
So first of all, this embassy should not go ahead. So let me just be clear about that. In terms of the economic relationship, we've always had an economic relationship with China, so it's not a new thing. And it's wrong for some politicians to say, oh, we need a new economic relationship with them. We have one anyway. This embassy is not in our national interest and it will jeopardise our national security. And that is why my party and I and my colleagues are so vocal about this in terms of the location, but also the plans. We have not seen the full plans. We've seen the landscape, the gardens, the hedges, how it's going to look from the outside. We do not know what those 208 rooms are going to look like inside the embassy, what they're going to be used for, the implications for our national security. The location is a problem alongside the City of London, as I'm sure you've reported on previously as well. So we believe this plan should not go ahead.
Just finally, a lot of Boris Johnson allies, former Boris Johnson allies like yourself, have been lured over to reform. You know, Nadine Dorries, for example, we saw Nadine Zahawi jumping ship as well. Have they tried to approach you at all?
No, is the answer. And let me just be quite clear about this. Some of the names, my former colleagues you've mentioned, they left Parliament. They're not on the front line in terms of British politics like I am and many of my colleagues are, fighting to rebuild my party post the general election. You know, I'm a lifelong Conservative. I've been a member for over 30 years. Yeah. I've always been at the grassroots.
So Nigel Farage hasn't tried to bend your arm?
I'm a diehard Conservative. So for me, it's
so he knows he's had no chance.
So it's not even a discussion topic. It really isn't. I'm fighting for Conservative values and
what
beliefs.
Did you... are you friends with Nadine Zahawi?
So I've known Nadine for a long time. Of course, I did not know about this at all. He's a former colleague. I've worked with him. These are personal choices, individual choices that people, you know, make themselves. When you're not in the front line, it's a different situation to when you are, like I am, and I have been, as you know, over the last year or so, fighting to get my party back on track. We are getting ourselves back on track. We're forcing the government into all these U-turns as well. And we're making the case to the British people as to why they should come back and support us.
Priti Patel, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Patel, speaking to us there.
Now we're taking you next to Antarctica because scientists there have been investigating how huge underwater waves triggered by collapsing ice could be dragging warmer water up from the depths and therefore speeding up the melting of glaciers.
So they're deploying these, quite incredible really, these underwater drones that go beneath the ice to find out what's going on, and our science editor Tom Clark went along too.
This submarine drone is on a pioneering mission to catch an underwater wave. What even is that? Well, we're on our way to an Antarctic glacier to meet a team of scientists who are trying to measure submarine tsunamis. They've never been studied before, but they suspect they could be a crucial piece in the puzzle as to why this vast icy continent is melting so quickly and why that matters to all of us. When chunks of ice break off glaciers, they make quite a splash. But researchers have no idea what impact this dramatic process called calving has beneath the surface. They suspect it's significant, and not just in the icy environment of Antarctica. This continent is so vast, twice the size of Australia. Changes here have global implications. So we're picking our way right now through this crumbly ice. We have to slow right down. And all this is the residue of the massive blocks of ice that carve off the front of the glacier. And if you listen, you can hear it sometimes cracking, popping It's the sound of air bubbles escaping after centuries trapped in the glacier's ice. And it's different to the air life on Earth breathes now, which, largely thanks to the Industrial Revolution and everything since, contains nearly twice as much carbon dioxide as it did back then. The warming that's caused has accelerated the melting and carving of Antarctica's rivers of ice.
To give you a little bit of scale, so what you can see in front of you, this big glacier front, that's about 40 metres above the sea surface there.
OK.
But what's important is that below the sea surface, you're looking at 150 to 200 metres of ice. So from that, you can get really big pieces of ice that come up.
Pieces large enough to cause submarine tsunamis. If you're wondering how a calving glacier could generate a tsunami, well, just take a look at that. It's a piece of ice that's broken off the glacier, about the size of an apartment block, and that slides into the ocean. It sends out an enormous shockwave, and that's exactly what the scientists are hoping to capture. The suspicion is the waves are powerful enough to drag up warmer water from the depths, accelerating melting. A small fleet of these gliders are being deployed to patrol the bay and analyse passing waves for the first time.
At the moment, we're waiting for confirmation that our controller back in Cambridge can actually see this. What I always think is really cool about one of these things is that I can be sitting in the office in Cambridge talking to this thing that's 10,000 kilometres away. And yeah, it's kind of remarkable.
Fitting, really, as what's happening here in Antarctica is felt everywhere. Cold, fresh water already pouring off the continent as it slowly thaws is threatening to tip this system, a vast marine conveyor belt called the Antarctic Circumpolar Current. It connects all the world's oceans, acting like a planetary scale refrigerator.
It's absorbing a lot of human-made heat, and it's taking that heat down into the bottom of this deep ocean. And what scientists really want to know is where that heat is going and if it's going to stay there for a long time, or are we at risk of it coming back into our atmosphere? And that will affect us all.
It's estimated the oceans here have absorbed 75% of the warmth generated since the Industrial Revolution. If it slows, and there are signs that's begun, it will have direct and immediate impacts on how quickly the world warms. Down here, those impacts won't be subtle. 1,000 miles southeast of where we are, a team of scientists have just landed on one of Antarctica's most infamous glaciers. Their mission, to use hot water to drill into the kilometre-thick ice of the Thwaites Glacier to learn how soon it may collapse.
Thwaites has been identified as kind of the ice ocean system that's most likely to affect sea level rise over the next 100 years. It's kind of, in a sense, a keystone of the West Antarctic ice sheet that if you destabilize Thwaites, it might lead to a destabilization of the rest of the ice sheet and ice shelves around it. And we also know it's changing one of the quickest.
It's earned the nickname the Doomsday Glacier because it holds back, like a cork in a frozen bottle, the far larger West Antarctic ice sheet. Losing both could raise global sea levels by 3 to 5 metres. It's perhaps the most consequential climate tipping point. To scientists, tipping points make sense, but knowing you've reached or gone past one is far from certain. Uncertainty amplified by climate skeptics who correctly point out that fossils reveal Antarctica was warmer before. The answers to both could lie in Antarctica's past.
So this is where we have about 200 metres worth of ice stored.
These are ice cores from deep within the continent. Last year, this team of researchers set a new record, an ice core 2,800 metres deep, representing 1.5 million years of Antarctica's climatic history. So this is a piece of one of those ice cores, and it's from about 200 metres down. They tell me that's about 600 or 700 years old. So I don't know, 14th century, at a time when there were plagues and wars in Europe. As a record of previous climate change, it's an essential guide to the future.
The long and deep ice cores are fantastic at showing us these really big glacial changes, where we could say that there has been similar high greenhouse gases in the past, but actually it's the rate of change that is so important. Those kind of timescales, they take thousands of years for ice sheets to change and evolve. What we're seeing now is this sort of, since this great acceleration during the 20th century, these are things that are happening at a rate we have never seen in our recent history.
How much time do you have for people who say, we don't have to worry about the climate change that we're seeing?
I'm a parent, so I think about this in timescales of my lifetime, but actually my children's lifetime. And I've been working in Antarctica for the last 20 years, and I've been able to witness the changes myself.
Scientists have a lot more to learn from Antarctica, but they're confident no humans have witnessed changes this fast. Now there's 8 billion of us. Despite being as far as you can get from civilization, this is the one place on Earth that matters to us all. Tom Clark, Sky News, Antarctica.
Tom is here with us in studio, delighted to say. Fantastic stuff. And first question, how long did it take you to get there? What is the route?
It's quite tortuous to get there, as you'd expect. I mean, it's the other end of the world, isn't it? In our case, we travelled down through South America to Punta Arenas, which is the most southerly port in Chile. It's kind of the gateway to Antarctica, really. It's where a lot of the international research groups from various countries that work in Antarctica depart from. We then flew from there with the British Antarctic Survey on a twin-prop aircraft. There's only half seats, the rest of cargo and luggage to go down there. And that's 5.5 hours over the ocean. Quite an unusual flight, you know, just before you land, because the airstrip for the Rotherham research station, which is the UK's sort of logistic base in Antarctica, it's in the sea, and the sea's sort of -2 degrees. You have to put on dry suits. So instead of, you know, tray tables and laptops, it's like get into this massive yellow suit, zip it up, and sit back in your seats and wait for landing.
And how kind of worrying is the situation there?
I mean, I think that's the big question, and I think a lot of the moment where people, we've all got used to the idea that of global warming, of climate change. We know it's getting warmer, and we're not, and depending on your viewpoint, how dramatic are the impacts? How much should we worry? Antarctica's still frozen. It will still be cold, even with the warming that we're going to see. But what I understood when I went down there is how fundamental Antarctica is as a component of the kind of global system that regulates climate. It's a very big block of cold ice, and it has a circulating current that goes around. It's something called the Antarctic Circumpolar Current. It's the only current in the world in the oceans that links all the other oceans together, right? And it cools a lot of water down. And there's some evidence that all that fresh water pouring off Antarctica due to melting could disturb that current, and that has knock-on effects. It's these unforeseen feedbacks that we could have. Yet the scientists there are honest. They can't tell us, you know, when that tipping point's going to trip. But there is a genuine suspicion, you know, that it could. And weirdly, they can look back. You might have seen those ice cores. They've drilled back through ice cores, which contains an amazing record of the past climate. There's bubbles of air trapped in them, so they know what the atmosphere of the Earth looked like 1.5 million years ago. They know what was in the water. They know how so they get said. But the problem is, we've never seen the speed of warming that we're seeing now. So the amount of carbon dioxide that's gone into the atmosphere, it's been at higher levels in the past, but it never went up that quickly because of the Industrial Revolution, all the emission we're doing. So they're in uncharted territory, and it's very difficult to be certain. But pretty much from what I'm listening to, from hearing their eyewitness reports, there's less snow and ice there than there used to be. They are sufficiently concerned to say, we really, really can't risk trying testing this out. There's an enormous potential for change locked up in Antarctica, and it really could flip the Earth into quite a difficult and warmer phase. And you know, we argue about 2 degrees of warming. We know we're inevitably going to get to that now with the emissions we've got. How quickly, the answers to that are in Antarctica, and it could be faster than we think, or that continent could help give us a bit of a buffer and give us longer to adapt. And that's what they're trying to work out. And I think that's why we all should pay attention to what they're saying and not try and two-side it too much. Do you know what I mean? Let's just wait for that evidence. Let's keep that evidence coming, because we will need it.
Yeah, just take the politics out of it.
I really think so. I think it's got very polarised, and really no one, certainly these people, they haven't got an agenda. They're just saying this is what the evidence is telling us. I think we need to just tone it down a bit on both sides and just look at those numbers, because it's the best we've got.
Tom, great stuff, thank you. Right, let's have a look at the weather now.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
The next few days look changeable with disruptive rain possible in the south tomorrow. Before then, Britain looks mostly fine if cool into the afternoon, but the cloudier north and northwest of Scotland can expect showers. Ireland and Northern Ireland, meanwhile, will be overcast and windy, with patchy rain becoming prolonged and locally heavy in the west. Wind and rain will spread into western Scotland and the far west of England and Wales later, with clearer skies and a scattering of showers moving in behind. Eastern Scotland will cloud over. Elsewhere, southern Britain will turn rather murky, with patchy rain spreading from the Channel, but central parts look mostly fine.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be speaking more about the West Midlands Police Chief apologising via a letter to MPs. Rob Harris will join us.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Welcome back. West Midlands Police Chief Constable has apologised to MPs after giving them false evidence about the decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from a football match. He had said no AI was used in drawing up their evidence, when in fact it was.
So this is all about the police report to Birmingham City Council about whether or not McAtee fans should be able to go to this Aston Villa game back in November. So the Force referred to this match between the Israeli club and West Ham United as part of the evidence, but that match never happened. And Craig Guilford, who is the police chief, said that until Friday afternoon, he thought that mistake was caused by Google, but in fact, it was the result of an AI programme, Microsoft Copilot.
Mr Guilford has now written to the Commons Home Affairs Committee in a letter saying, I would like to offer my profound apology to the committee for this error, both on behalf of myself and that of Assistant Chief Constable O'Hara. I had understood and been advised that the match had been identified by way of a Google search in preparation for attending the Home Affairs Committee.
He goes on to say that my belief that this was the case was honestly held and there was no intention to mislead the committee. But my goodness, this is really going to put more pressure on somebody who is already looking pretty embattled. Rob Harris, our sports correspondent, joins us now on the phone. Rob, what do you make of this?
Well, this is the second time that the Chief Constable, Craig Guilford, has had to apologise for misleading MPs, because previously he'd said the Jewish community had supported the ban on Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from attending the match at Aston Villa. He later had to acknowledge that was not the case, and he wrote to the MPs a few weeks ago to say that. There was also the situation when appearing in front of the Select Committee for a second time just last week, that he only brought up the fact that West Midlands Police were aware of threats to the Israeli club in early September, yet that was not made clear. In fact, he was challenged by MPs about why this was only being informed to them at this stage. And this all comes with so many questions about this contentious decision that was disputed by the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and it is leading today to a statement expected from the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, after receiving the initial findings of the inspectorate investigating their own decision to take this ban on Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from this Europa League game.
What's the next step expected, Rob, in this process? Obviously, he's recently been to Parliament. Is he due to return again, or is that part of the process done and dusted?
Well, I understand that MPs are seeking evidence from the Dutch police. Why this matters is because a lot of the intelligence reporting from West Midlands relied on a match that Maccabi Tel Aviv played in Amsterdam in 2024. The violence that was involved in that around that game. Now, there are attacks on Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. There were also racist, violent attacks by Maccabi Tel Aviv fans on locals there in Amsterdam. And that's why West Midlands Police ultimately determined that there would be a danger posed to the local community in Birmingham if they did allow those Maccabi fans to attend the game at the start of November. What they didn't make clear, which they knew in early September, which we now know from various minutes, is there was a threat of violence. People would take up arms, the reference was, in Birmingham to potentially attack the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. So now we are waiting to see just what the future of the West Midlands Police Chief Constable Craig Guilford would be, because many have called for his departure.
Rob, great stuff. Thanks so much for that. And of course, Sophie, one of the people that did call for his departure to you just moments ago is the Shadow Foreign Secretary, but I think notably a former Home Secretary.
Yeah, exactly. She wants him to go. She says he needs to resign. Shabana Mahmood saying they're reviewing this independent report and she's going to make a statement in the House of Commons in response. So, look, it's difficult to see. It's hard to see how he survives in many ways, but look, it's a decision that is going to be taken after all of this evidence comes through.
But if you're at the point of making a big apology, as he was, and you don't resign, it shows you're going to fight it, I guess. So we shall see what happens. We're out of time. Thanks so much for being with us today. Sky News Today, up next.